The story begins at a school where students are gathering to donate blood. Some volunteers ask Nurse Kim if it's her first time at this school, and she replies that this place is tough because many people want to donate blood, so it's like these kids come here more often than in other schools. She wonders if that isn't strange, since nowadays kids don't even try to donate, and her colleague responds that it's very sweet. The students line up for the ambulances, but there's another line where students ask how much a blood donation certificate pays, and it was 5,000 won. People decide to trade there, exchanging a 5,000 won gift card for a blood donation certificate. The guy behind the box pays people with the certificates, paying 10,000 won to one man, and to that boy, it was a business. Buying gift cards for 10,000 won. People thought he was losing money, but his real goal was the blood donation certificate. The hidden value of the certificate was usually 12,000 won, and when he sells them for 10,000 won, people in need of transfusions flood his messages. But the reason no one else sells them is because it's a crime. However, for a minor like him, if caught, he'd only get a warning. Violence, theft, fraud, and even prostitution. They can't punish with serious crimes. He had a total of 60,000 won there, thinking that the police didn't care about victimless cases like this. But that didn't mean his work was easy. A man kicks him in the face, throwing him to the ground along with all the certificates. Committing a crime also meant becoming a target for other crimes. Those who also commit crimes don't get excuses, they get no sympathy, and they can't even retaliate, as a blonde guy asks how much money Minsu made today. Minsu curses them, saying no one would protect him anyway. Some posters about rehabilitation laws are spread around the city, and the delinquents say those are just empty words from people who do nothing. However, a horrible smell invades the scene and the delinquents complain. The blonde guy asks why they're judging him since men can fart while smoking. Besides, he says the smell is better than cigarettes, with the boy lying under his feet. Asking if Minsu made money but didn't pay the tax, that Changsu went to the rehab center and now he's acting like a fool. Minsu replies that he's nothing without Changsu. The blonde guy asks if he knows that Changsu is 100 times scarier than him, but that he'd heard something, because Changsu was getting out today. Joe Changsu, the leader of a young cartel in that area, everyone suffered because of him, but no one could call themselves victims, because if they did, they'd be afraid of retaliation from his uncontrollable power. Wondering if Changsu was really getting out of the rehab center today. Minsu tells him to show some respect because Changsu wasn't his buddy, while the blonde guy says that Bastard was acting this way because he was getting out. The blonde guy says he doesn't want to see Changsu's bad side because it would be great to have peace as always. Minsu takes something out of his bag, and the man asks what he's doing, so he decides he'll hand it over to him, but asks what they're doing and why they don't take it, showing his middle finger and telling those bastards to go to hell. The blonde guy calls him a piece of shit, furious, and kicks him, asking if it was some kind of joke, asking if now that Changsu wasn't there, nothing scared him, but warns that tonight he's going to take that bastard's life, though his friends try to warn him about the rehab center. He says it's nothing, and after some time, he'll just walk out, and for no. The blonde guy always made Minsu tremble with fear when he saw him, instead of Changsu, but he's struck in the waist. His friends are stunned, because a sneaker just kicked the blonde guy. Minsu is shocked too, catching his attention, as a man says there can't be school violence, then helps Minsu and asks if he's okay, while people whispered that this was the student council president. The blonde guy grabs a shovel, saying he'll take his life and head to the rehab center today, while the president just repeats about taking someone's life as he hits him again, grabbing the blonde guy's shoulder and slamming him to the ground while asking if he's ever taken someone's life before, if he could really handle that. The blonde guy asks what he's doing since he didn't say he'd take his life, just that he hit him. His friend charges toward the president, asking who he thinks he is to interfere and if he wants to go to hell, but the president simply dodges the delinquent's punch and slaps him across the face right after. Another overweight friend asks if he really thought it would be easy just because he's the student council president and tries to punch the man, but he simply ducks, dodging the blow, and grabs his wrist while reflecting on how easy it is. Then he throws the fat guy to the ground. The president walks toward the other delinquent, who nervously prepares his fist and begs him not to come closer, saying he was only pretending to attack, repeating for him to wait and stay away while shaking in fear. Minsu stands up in the middle of all this, sighing deeply at the whole situation. He repeats that there should be no violence in school, and asks what Kang Yushan wants with all this. Yusung asks how he could say something like that instead of thank you, brother. Minsu repeats the word brother, saying he's not his brother anymore and should stay out of his business since he shouldn't get close to trash if he doesn't want to get dirty. Yusung says he's not trash, he's his brother, and no matter what he thinks, they'll always be brothers. Minsu says that either way, he should just get rid of that watch. His brother looks at his wrist and asks why. Minsu says he was adopted by a rich family, so he should have a new watch by now, because that one is making him embarrassed, but Yusong asks what's wrong with it, and also asks about his brother's class, but Minsu says he's going home. Yusong thinks he really should change that watch. On his way home, Minsu wonders why he even got involved, because if he hadn't entered the school because of him, his brother, Kang Yusong, the student council president and pre-admitted to Korea's medical university, and him, Lee Minsu, the biggest troublemaker in school. They were blood brothers, and his brother's original name was Lee Hyunsu, but now he was adopted by a rich family and is called Kang Yushang. While the boy stops in the middle of the road, because he's still there in front of the penguin orphanage. His brother shouldn't get involved with him anymore because he doesn't want to drag him down. He would walk his golden path while Minsu must find his own. In that old discarded wardrobe, that was his way of living. The hard-earned money he had saved up totaled 340,000 won. Minsu repeats that he's 660,000 won short of reaching 1 million. The next blood donation truck would come in 3 months, and he wonders if he should go to another school to sell. In 2 years, he'll be kicked out of the orphanage, and the government will give him 5 million won, but that won't even be enough for a deposit. He wonders if he should get a part-time job, but no one wants to hire an underage orphan like him. He knows it's a crime, but it's the only way to get money quickly, because he doesn't want to bring his brother down any further. He shuts his locker afterward, but the blonde guy is behind him, smiling, saying his Minsu is loaded, and asks if he wants to hear something funny, because if he gets caught making money through crime, the government will take it all back, and he starts laughing. Minsu asks what he wants, but the blonde guy asks if he didn't already tell him that just seeing him would be enough to make him tremble with fear. In the middle of a classroom, Yusong is taking notes from his studies, but the teacher tells everyone to be quiet and sit down, announcing that Jo Chang-soo, who had been in the rehabilitation center, had returned, and from what he'd seen, they should help him readjust. The students gossip that Chang-soo wouldn't change and that the rehabilitation period wasn't long enough. But a wheelchair approaches the classroom, and all the students are completely shocked, even Yuzhong. Jo Chang-soo, leader of the youth cartel and an unstoppable force, was in a wheelchair, completely frail. He starts laughing for no reason, and then wets himself. People ask what's wrong with Chang-soo this time. The Juvenile Rehabilitation Act and the repealed law that now sends juvenile offenders to military rehabilitation centers for training. The rehabilitation lasts until they're fully mentally rehabilitated. Near the penguin orphanage, people are shouting for others to step back. Civilians ask what happened there, and a police officer says someone lost their life, causing a traffic jam throughout the area. The driver says there was an accident up ahead and traffic was bad, so he'll be late for class. Yuzum repeats about the accident because it happened at the orphanage where he had lived, suddenly noticing something on the ground. The driver asks why the young master is opening the door all of a sudden, but Yushong just stares at the ground. Because there was his brother's broken watch, he panics upon seeing it. A body was covered, and people said it was one of the children from the orphanage. Yushong tries to approach, asking the civilians to step aside, calling for his brother multiple times, but then going into shock. Under Article 243 of the Juvenile Rehabilitation Act, this minor was being arrested at the crime scene. From that moment on, the identity of the minor would be managed by the rehabilitation center. In the middle of a courtroom, inside the rehabilitation court of the juvenile center, a judge slams the table forcefully, shouting that he was unqualified, because Lee Min-soo showed no signs of remorse and shouldn't forget he was there on a murder charge. Min-soo tries to say he didn't take anyone's life, and kept repeating it several times, but no one listened to him. The judge mutters that he keeps lying, and asks how he explains the fingerprints and the blood on that brick, wanting to know about the other crimes he committed too, which he also denied. He's seen many like him, blaming circumstances, family, and their situation because they are unqualified. When things don't go their way, they pretend to be victims and don't feel genuine remorse, while people in the courtroom think the judge looked truly angry. Because if you take the life of someone who chased you or stole your money, or simply because you don't like them, this world would be submerged in corpses, and he needs to learn this lesson now. If someone bothers you, you should ask an adult for help, because in the end, the reason he committed crimes was because he didn't believe in adults. Lee Min-soo, under Article 28 of the Rehabilitation and Reform Act, was sentenced to the Juvenile Detention and Rehabilitation Center. On a bus, some youths complain about the huge distance between the city and the detention center. Some officers joke with each other because they have good voices, but they'll have to wait just a bit more, because they'll have plenty of time to work soon. The delinquents on the bus wonder what's going on, and if they really slept there. Seeing that there's a girl pressing a shovel into the ground with her sneaker, the officers tell the girls to stop staring and to dig deeper, while the delinquents say it's been a while since they smelled a woman, and divide among themselves which girl each would take. But the officer inside the bus says that's the girls' detention center, and their own is being built on the other side. One of the delinquents complains he can't sleep without girls, while Min-soo stares at the floor of the bus, thinking that even when he tells the truth, no one believes him, and so they enter the center, with the gates closing, sealing their sentence. The officers tell the delinquents to line up, but they refuse, and one even asks for cigarettes. That delinquent keeps asking for cigarettes, but the officer says minors aren't allowed to smoke. He keeps demanding a cigarette so he won't punch the officer, while Minsu steps off the bus, noticing something different as some people shout in unison. It was an entire unit of delinquents running out of breath while shouting, calling out for pigs over and over. The new delinquents are shocked by this, but start laughing, saying these idiots are hilarious and look like pigs running. An officer turns around, noticing something strange, removing his foot from the ground, and shouting for the delinquents to stop. The newcomers ask what's going on and what he's talking about, but the man keeps calling for backup. That unit snaps their legs together, standing at attention, waiting for their superior's command. An officer yells that with respect to the director, they should give their salute. The unit does so, saluting the unit director. The newcomers keep laughing at the delinquents and officers, but the director signals the squad to stand at ease. The delinquents complain they hate all this military stuff. However, the director smiles upon seeing it, commanding his unit to bow. The delinquents mockingly ask if they're supposed to kneel to him, but the unit of delinquents slams their heads to the ground, bowing in submission to their lord. The newcomers wonder why they knelt, and if they even know about youth rights. That director points and says they've got a bunch of brats this time. The unit shouts for their director, who announces they have 10 minutes to turn these brats into pets. One of the delinquents complains about being called a brat and says he'll shut that damn mouth of his, but he's met with a punch. Minsu wonders what that was, because those guys were effortlessly beating up the delinquents. The army of delinquents keeps advancing while the freshmen think they're insane. They decide to run while the army charges forward. One of the freshmen gets kicked in the stomach, while another is hit with a punch to the gut. The delinquents continue beating the freshmen. That director says he loves seeing pigs like that, and for now, they're not pigs anymore, but slaves, because now they can speak human words. The delinquent army shouts loudly that yes, they understand, saluting and bowing in thanks to the director, while Minsu watches all of it, wondering what kind of situation this is. Because in a mess like this, pretending to be defeated was the best strategy. Only that way could he make it through this, and many would be busy dealing with the others. The freshmen run forward asking for help, while Minsu thinks that running like that will only make them targets. The officers try to warn them not to go there. Minsu reflects that if they really wanted to help, they would have done so from the start. A cop hits a delinquent on the back of the neck with a baton, saying he told him not to get closer. But he hates being annoyed when people don't listen. They stomp on the delinquent while complaining that they hate having to hit people, and he forced them to do it. It was like a survival intimidation tactic, with exaggerated movements and far from any vital spots, a type of violence not meant to kill. It's natural that most people don't want to become murderers, even him. But the director appears in front of him, saying he's sharp, because he got there disoriented but still fell for a stupid trick. Minsu apologizes, but the director steps on his face, saying there's no need to apologize, and that he likes smart rats like him. And from now on he's a rat, so he should keep entertaining the director, who even corrects his scream of pain into a squeak. The director turns to a police officer, saying that things should be put in order now, and the man tells all the freshmen to take off their clothes. So they're left naked, kneeling in a line. The director smiles and says no. They'll begin the real training. In hotel room 106, someone rings the bell. Yusum asks if anyone's home. With no response, he says it's 2 p.m., the perfect time for someone to be out. So he pulls a pair of scissors from his suit, opening the doorknob slowly using the scissors, and manages to unlock the door. The young man says excuse me and announces that he's coming in. When he was younger, he and his brother used to break into empty houses all the time. Minsu kept watch in the hallway while he stole anything valuable inside, and before the police could catch them and take them back to the orphanage, they spent years breaking into homes. As a result, they could clean out an entire house in just 5 minutes. Yushin thinks he didn't expect to be doing this kind of thing again nowadays. Then he opens the bedroom door, saying not to worry because he's not there to steal anything, he just wants answers. His brother had gone to that place too. Chang-Su is tied to the bed, moaning over and over while sweating cold in fear, saying he soiled himself. Yusum asks what kind of place the detention center is that left him like that, because they say he fell and hit his head, but he doesn't have any broken bones or visible injuries. He used to be so terrifying that even the police didn't want to go near him. But looking at him now, Yusum presses Chang-Su's head against the bed, complaining that it was only 4 weeks for him, but his brother might never get out, so Chang-Su needs to get his head straight and answer him. Yushan notices something strange afterward. Chang-Su is screaming about electricity and how it hurts, but he's wrong. The young man complains that coming there was a waste of time, but he notices something else. On Chang-Su's chest, there was a red mark. Inside the detention center, They were branding the delinquents with the letter B, letting the ink run down their bodies. All the delinquents kneel as they're branded. The director lists their crimes and gives him a C rank, saying this time they only had boring little punks. But finally he finds something interesting, saying his eyes weren't wrong, and congratulates the rat Lee Minsu, because he's more violent than he looks, and is the only A rank in this group, so he'll get some special time there. At Yeonji Girls' High School, some girls are walking toward the classroom, but one of them notices something strange. Blushing, she tells her friend to stop eating and look over there. Yusong was sitting and reading a book. The girls comment that he's ridiculously handsome. One girl walks up and says it's been a while since she saw him, even though it was actually the first time they'd met, and another friend says they should start getting to know each other now. The girl asks if he's a trainee too, and if he wants to follow her on social media. Yusong just stares at the girls, saying it's unfortunate because he doesn't use Instagram, and the girls freak out because his smile is beautiful. Yusong asks if he can ask them a question, saying that he's looking for someone named Gus Semin, and her friend asks if it's that one. That crazy girl right there, holding a motorcycle helmet in her hand. She had just gotten out of the rehabilitation center. The two girls complained that Semin was staring over here and that this psycho had sharp hearing. That masked girl asks about those sneaky stares. Yusheng stands face to face with Semin. The girl asks where he's going. He just says he wants to know about the rehabilitation center, but Semin tells him to leave. Walking away from Yuzhong, the boy takes a deep breath right after, saying that his younger brother was there. Semin's expression goes blank upon hearing that, continuing on her way without caring. Yusong sighs, saying maybe he was too direct and should try to get closer better next time. But Semin calls out to him. A helmet comes flying in his direction. Yusong catches it by pure reflex, while Semin tells him to get on the bike, because this wasn't the place to talk about that. She starts the engine to leave. Yusong asks what made her change her mind, while Semin says her brother was locked up there too. The boy wants to know what kind of place the juvenile rehabilitation center really is. Semin stays silent for a few seconds, trying to say that it was the very embodiment of hell. The director says only 3 hours have passed, and they're going to start the next training session, while Minsu wonders when this will end, because they're supposed to start squat jumps, and the squad makes pig noises. The officers shout that on 1 they should say pig, and on 2 they should make the sound, and so they respond, starting to move with their jumps. Minsu makes a rat noise while pulling on his ears, cursing the situation in his head because only 3 hours had passed, but it felt endless. The director enjoys the situation with his ear, saying that the animal noises sound so nice, but he notices a groan amid the noise. A blonde delinquent had collapsed on the ground, while officers stomp on him because he should get up. That boy says his stomach hurts really badly and asks to use the bathroom. The officers complain that this is all he could take, while Minsu reflects on how they're beating him just for needing the toilet. But the director approaches, saying he probably held it for a long time before asking and shouldn't worry, just get up. The delinquent just looks up. Then the director squats down and looks at him, saying that this is tough, but asking if anyone else wants to use the bathroom. Minsu says they're being punished together, but now they want to leave. The officers correct the group and ask if anyone else wants to go to the bathroom, and if not now, they won't be allowed until training ends, and the rest must continue training. Minsu wonders if they're really going to let them go, and with a system this unfair, maybe they should just get out of here. One delinquent says it's brilliant because if they keep doing this, training days will end soon, thinking they're trying to find a way to stop training. Minsu reflects that something about this is suspicious. The director asks if any more life forms want to join the group because it's a rare opportunity, and Minsu wonders how they're letting people go so easily. Unconditional kindness was like a nameless fruit in the forest. Minsu looks coldly because the sweeter and more tempting something is, the stranger it feels, and so he raises his hand, saying that more carefully and aesthetically he should approach. Minsu says he doesn't need to go anymore and wants to continue the training. The officer grabs his neck, asking if they're joking and if this is some kind of prank on him. Minsu says he suddenly used his muscles and his stomach froze for a moment. So the officer tells him to go back to the group because he's keeping an eye on that rat. A delinquent starts laughing, saying he's an idiot. Minsu reflects that they're treating them like animals, but they give bathroom breaks. And animals don't use bathrooms, only humans do. The officer shouts that everyone who needs the bathroom is right there. So the director says that both humans and animals need to relieve themselves, and it must be hard to hold it in. Therefore, they were dismissed for 30 minutes. The delinquents laugh, mocking the fools, but the director asks what they're laughing at, because he was dismissed, not all of them. All the delinquents are shocked to hear that. Then the director announces that from now on, there'll be a human centipede. Minsu reflects on centipedes, an arthropod belonging to the class Chilopoda, with 15 pairs of legs in the basic form, but some species can have up to 177 pairs, a creature below humans and animals. The officer orders them to place their legs on each other's shoulders and raise their arms, because if they fall, they'll get extra time. They were worse than pigs, inferior beings that couldn't even control basic body functions. For creatures like them, using a bathroom was a luxury. The director claps his hands, saying they were useless insects, and made a bathroom for them, giving them everything they wanted. And if it didn't hurt, they should hurry up and do their business. One delinquent was nearly unconscious, but collapses to the ground as the officer beats him, asking what he was staring at, since it's only been 3 hours. Then he throws water on the delinquents, because just 3 hours ago, these savage, terrifying monsters had turned into pets, timidly trying to dodge punishment, wondering if the day was already over. An alarm sounds shortly after. The director orders them to clean up and head back into the center, and the officers should feed the animals their rations. Everyone there salutes the director as he walks away. Inside a cafeteria, Minsu receives a plate of food scraps, thinking there was nothing edible there, and also wondering why they were eating on the floor and if it was because they were animals, but at the very least, they should get utensils. The officer says that for now they're going to sing the Song of Gratitude, and orders them to start now. Some begin singing that they are not humans but dogs and pigs. They eat whatever is given and obey orders, thankful for being cursed at and beaten. Minsu thinks this is truly inhumane because they really do see them as animals. The boy falls silent, thinking it's fine, whether he's a life form or not. He's going to endure this, and so he eats with his hand, because he'll endure anything to get the hell out of there no matter what. Sen parks her motorcycle on a bridge. Yusung notices something in that scenery. It's the Juvenile Rehabilitation Center, and he can see it from there. The girl says she goes there every day because she keeps thinking about her brother. Yusung says his brother is awaiting trial and will probably end up there soon, and asks if she really thinks that place is hell, to which Semin replies that hell must be better, because that place isn't for humans. Semin pulls a cigarette from her mouth, saying she has nightmares every day about what happens there and can't sleep without pills, but he must really love his brother to have come to see her. Yusung says that when their mother passed away, she asked him to protect his brother, but in the end, he couldn't, and that's why he came to her. It's too late to try and fix things. Of all the people who came out of that place, she's the only one who seemed okay. The girl asks if he wants her to tell him how she survived in the rehabilitation center. Yusung wonders how she came out of that place in one piece, but she makes a crazy face, saying she pretended to be an idiot, and she was serious. Yusung says he's not joking and asks her to tell him. The girl looks straight ahead, saying again that she's not joking. She ties her hair back, startling Yuzhong when he sees something: the scars on her head. Semin says that place had the craziest bastards in the country, and when tempers flared, fights would explode. But it was full of unimaginable lunatics, and she never thought they'd pour hot oil on her head. Yusung apologizes, saying he didn't know she went through all that, and tells her she doesn't have to say anything else. Semin says that acting like an idiot got her released earlier, and she probably won't be of much help to him, but she kicks his shoulder, telling him to fix that look on his face and not to pity her. Yusung bumps her foot, telling her to move, and the girl laughs, saying that earlier he asked about the mark, and he didn't seem to know anything, but she'll explain, because after the induction ceremony for both boys and girls, they get a bath, a meal, and some clothes. Minsu quickly puts on a jacket, thinking that, to prevent escape, a GPS-equipped collar was locked around their neck. He complains that the clothes were terrible, and this thing on his neck. The officers tell them not to get distracted and to stay in line. After receiving their items, they are given a room, where juvenile offenders are categorized by the severity of their crimes, and their room is assigned based on that. For example, an E room is for simple assault, D for drugs, C for theft and fraud, and B for aggravated assault. So Yushan's brother will definitely get an A room, because that's for criminals who committed murder or equivalent offenses, just like the boy's brother, who had committed a murder. Minsa takes a deep breath as he enters the room, with 4 people already inside: 2 muscular guys with bulging veins, a delinquent with earrings, and a long-haired man staring. Minsa thinks things are quiet and wonders if this is a standoff. He can't turn back now. One of the delinquents asks if this bastard doesn't know how to introduce himself, wanting to know where he's from and what brought him here. Minsa reflects that this is a background check standoff and says he came from Penguin Orphanage and attends Songrek School. The delinquents laugh, saying that's an elite path and they know a guy from Songrek. But the long-haired man tells everyone to shut up, wanting to know what brought him there, and if he's in room A, he must have caused some serious trouble. Minsa thinks this guy must be the leader. He says he's there for murder. The delinquents break out in cold sweat, whispering that they finally got someone who took a life in there. Minsa reflects that he's the only murderer there. He thought they grouped people with similar crimes, but murder is the worst, and he wonders if crime severity determines power there. The earringed delinquent laughs, saying their dog is doomed because he'll stay stuck as the newbie. Minsa thinks that guy may be the leader, but even so, he's still the youngest. However, he notices that the one sitting in the chair is a white-haired delinquent, groaning in pain from having to endure that weight. The long-haired one stands up, saying it's annoying, while the orange one keeps stepping on the chair, asking if he wants to fight someone who took a life instead of staying the youngest. Minsu thinks nothing changes. Weak people are bullied both outside and inside, and if they think they can walk over him, he'll make sure he's treated like a murderer. At 7 p.m., it's time for reflection essays, where kids at the juvenile center have to write 10 letters every day. Minsu thinks he didn't kill anyone and wonders what he's supposed to write, but a paper ball is thrown at him. Two of the delinquents are playing with paper balls like it's baseball. Minsu asks if they're not supposed to write reflection letters too. The delinquent asks why he's getting irritated about that, since their dog is going to write everything for them anyway, and Minsu should leave it to the dog too, asking what's up with the dog for him to get up without writing, while the guy says he needs to use the bathroom. The delinquent tells him to go handle his business. Minsu reflects that there are no human rights in the reformatory, only the guards treat them like animals. The boy was doing his business, but a foot approaches, because in this place without guards, the law of the jungle rules, kicking the white-haired boy and asking if he can really do that like a human. No one will protect him, and if you're weak, you're prey. The delinquent tells him to act like the dog he is, and if he wants to do that, he better hurry, but to survive he needs to be strong, or at least look strong. The boy really looks like a dog, and if he can't do that, everything ends as if he were just another animal to the strongest. At 8 p.m., it's bath time. Each person gets 3 minutes to bathe, using only water and soap. That soap was full of hair. They were sharing it with 50 people, and it was already this bad. The guards arrive for bed inspection. The delinquents respond in numbers from 1 to 3. Minsu replies that he's number 5, while the dog makes a sound instead of giving a number. The boy is impressed by that. Then the officer grabs his baton and hits the dog on the head with force, striking him on the head multiple times, yet the notebook remains untouched. The dog keeps crying after that. Minsu thinks that after the count, the lights go out. At 10 at night, the day ends with sleep. Minsu hears some sounds of crying, because the white-haired boy was crying a lot. One of the delinquents asks who's crying like a human, and the boy goes quiet, holding his mouth so he wouldn't make noise while crying. Minsu just closes his eyes. That's how he spent his first night in the reformatory. At 5:30, morning cleaning and roll call begin again. Minsu cleans the floor together with the dog, and so the morning starts very early. At 6, breakfast is served. After roll call, meals are distributed under the door. The group gets a few portions of food. Minsu asks why they don't eat in the cafeteria, but the delinquents explain it's because of the afternoon training, and Minsu thinks that at least this time, they got spoons. But then he asks where the dog is and why he isn't eating. The delinquents look down, saying he's right underneath, but it's a human table. Minsu tells them to feed him while he works. While the delinquents ask why he's so concerned, since he treated the dog like a friend, they gather all the scraps of what they ate and aim everything with care, finishing the dog food. Minsu looks at it, impressed. The delinquents tell the dog to eat it immediately. As the boy starts crying again, the dog gets ready to eat it, but Minsu kicks the table, yelling at him not to eat that. Then the delinquents curse at him in shock. Minsu asks if he's just a dog, calling out the name Moon Hyun-jun. The long-haired one says this place has its own hierarchy and rules, and if he came in late, he has to follow the rules, and if he doesn't like it, he can fight until he becomes the leader. But to do that, he needs to defeat the dog first, since he has the higher rank. If he loses, he'll become the new dog, and Minsu says this is the damn hierarchy game. But it's so childish to do this. And seriously, these guys come here after causing trouble, but don't let go of that mindset. However, Kanjun hits him on the head several times. The delinquents say the dog is doing well, and the killer should fight back. Minsu reflects that he knows he's losing while he's down. But Moon Hyun-jun is crying, so Minsu wonders how he could fight back in a moment like that. Meanwhile, at the Penguin Orphanage, a woman stands outside, asking if the boy is joining the army tomorrow and if he packed everything he needs. Yushim agrees with Director Mom, since he and his brother's treasures are all packed. The director says they were the biggest delinquents in the orphanage, especially Yuzong, who used to beat up the other kids easily. The boy asks if it was really like that, while the director remembers how the kids used to be afraid of him. Yusong smiles and says about that, she's got a memory error, because it's true that he fought the kids. Moon slaps Minsu in the face while apologizing, while the delinquents stomp on his face, saying he's a weakling, not a killer, and that's why Minsu's parents abandoned him. Yusheng says the kids weren't afraid of him. While Minsu strikes the delinquent in the head, his brother remembers that the kids were afraid of his brother because clearly he's better at fighting. Moon keeps whimpering when he sees this, while the delinquents are completely stunned. The room leader looks furious. Minsu was truly terrifying for being insane, because when that bastard loses his mind, no one can stop him. Minsu declares that from now on, everyone will be his dogs. Minsu strikes another delinquent in the head, repeating that they're all going to be puppies now, because they told him to do it this way. Another delinquent hits him from behind, saying it was a mistake, and asks if he's crazy for doing this alone. But this is room A, and he better stop acting like that. This place is full of people who think there's something, but Minsu must see it as easy just because he's a rejected orphan. Minsu shoves a cleaning stick into his mouth, telling him to shut up right now, because that bastard insulted his mother. Two more delinquents charge at him, saying they'll send him to hell, but Minsu repeats their talk about taking his life, as he holds the stake in his hand and asks if they've ever taken a life before. The president says he's going to abolish the juvenile law, and if words don't work, they should take a beating. A politician asks who's going to do the beating, because he is going to beat the hell out of that bastard, since someone came out of nowhere and stole this spot, and if he manages to get Han Mansu out of the way like this. But anyway, he wants to know why he's just standing there. Calling out to Kang Yushang, kneeling on the floor, Yushang says he was thinking about the military test, and resolving juvenile issues now would benefit his political career. The adoptive father replies that he intended to take care of his father, but canceled medical school and was sneaking out at night. So he tells Kang Yushang to speak properly, and prepares for a swing while asking if this is about his younger brother. He hits another golf ball far away, and warns that even if he enlists now, there's no guarantee he'll be sent to the Juvenile Rehabilitation Center, and Yushang says he understands that. But that's why he's asking for his help, and if there's anyone who could make it happen, it's his father. The father asks why he should clean up the mess his brother made. Yushang reflects that he really won't help after all, but the father says it's an exchange between the two of them, and asks if he can turn his father into a president. Since that's all he should focus on, Minsu shouts for them to come at him, because he's going to stab them all with that piece. The boy's hand is suddenly restrained, while one of the delinquents tells the others to hurry and attack, holding Minsu. The bald delinquent strikes Minsu's head. The one holding him suggests he might be dead, but the bald one says it was their friend's order. Minsu gets up and headbutts the one holding him, saying it was fake, and kicks the bald one between the legs, throwing him away, leaving him slightly knocked out. Minsu tries to push him away, saying he's heady. The room leader asks if his angry word was mom, or something else he had because he was abandoned, since it was heartbreaking, and he wants to know if his mother knew her son had become a murderer. Minsu moves quickly, raising the stake up to his eye, telling him to apologize unless he wants to lose his eyes. The long-haired guy asks if he should apologize for his mother abandoning him or for committing a crime, but they should stop there. That boy raises his hand saying he didn't do it. Minsu wonders what just happened, but the room leader says he was the one who started it all, and the boy quickly turns, asking who he's talking to. Officers rush in toward his head to strike him, hitting Lee Minsu's face with full force. Then they order everyone to get against the wall and for Minsu to drop the weapon. The officers continue beating him because he caused trouble there. That long-haired delinquent says he grabbed the weapon and hit the others, causing injuries, and that he'll include the details in the report. The officer asks if they just sat there quietly while he caused all that chaos. Even Moon agrees with that. The officer drags Minsu by the hair, saying he's a lost cause, and he's sentenced to solitary confinement to reflect on his actions while he's there. Minsu curses everything that just happened. The solitary confinement room, also known as the punishment room. That place is where troublemakers are isolated for a period, and the days spent there aren't counted toward detention time, so Minsu curses that his sentence has been extended. But being alone there was actually good, and maybe he should cause trouble sooner to be sent there. An officer tells Lee Minsu to sit properly, or he'll earn another day in solitary. So kneeling down and lowering his head, Minsu reflects that he has to keep the kneeling position even while sleeping. Under 7-day-a-week surveillance, even the freedom to move hands and feet is taken away, but at least the cuffs are removed when going to the bathroom. A question pops into Minsu's head, wondering where the toilet paper is. The guard tells him to stop thinking and finish quickly. Minsu asks about the toilet paper, and the guard says it's behind him. Then Minsu notices a faucet behind him. The guard tells him to use the water to clean himself. Minsu stares at his hands after hearing that, thinking he has to use them now. The food arrives in the boy's cell, cursing the situation because they didn't release his arms to eat. So when he gets out of there, he's going to crush them all. At 7 p.m., it's time to write a reflection. Even in solitary confinement, letters must be written, and now he has to write twice as many for being sent there. He draws the bald guy from his cell, and writes about the others who live there. Minsu thinks everyone there has problems, but the most problematic one is that bastard Gus Sejun, who must be defeated no matter what. At nightfall in solitary confinement, Minsu sleeps there on the floor, drooling on the ground in a trance. He dreams of his brother, in their house that was burning down. Minsu and Yusong face the situation with grim expressions. Their faces were cold. Minsu wakes up suddenly, crying and screaming. Maybe because of the imprisonment, the bad memories keep flowing into his dreams. He groans a little, saying that if he falls asleep again, he'll have the same nightmare. So he gets ready to kneel down, crying heavily and breathing hard in that moment. In the end, he stayed up all night. Finally, after 16 days, Minsu leaves the room. Lee, who had been in solitary, was released and should return to his room. The delinquents stare at him seriously, while Minsu, irritated, curses them. The delinquents apologize for going too far and say their dog won't do it again. They'll just live normally from now on, and Minsu thinks it really was easy. But he says he'll accept the apologies and adds that they need to apologize to Seijin too. But then his head is struck by a foot. Seijin asks if Mommy's boy was looking for him, and then the delinquents grab him, shoving a cloth into his mouth. The delinquents drag him to the bathroom. Seijin says someone else was more excited to see him before he was. Someone who really hated being hit by him there. The bald guy says holding it in every day is hard, and now he's going to crush him. Minsu starts screaming even with the cloth in his mouth, panicking in that moment, but someone enters the room and says that's enough. Seijin says he must be the new guard and that he shouldn't interfere because they were doing this with permission. Yushang says he'll deal with their punishment later. Then he reaches out his hand to his brother. Minsu is stunned to see that familiar hand, looking at his brother next, and then raising his own hand. Meeting his brothers, Yushang tells him that the two of them are going home, and calls out Minsu's name, helping his brother off the floor. Someone sings a song about a battlefield covered in snow, because they were marching there, and he asks if his comrade can hear him. Able to hear that piercing voice, a general with 4 stars on his beret is crying, talking about patriotism, because a true patriotic soldier understood. He says that General Juk Sai embodied his desire to protect the nation, and the old man responds that those were the golden days of the Korean army. The general says he's a true patriot, but making his son a soldier, Juk Sai responds that he grew up without wisdom to speak such nonsense, because other politicians forge documents to keep their sons out of the military by faking mental illnesses, but instead they should send immature kids there. The general starts singing that they would enlist today, while people outside think there's a heavy atmosphere between the general and the politician. He keeps singing and Sion reflects on that strange military sound. Juk Sai calls the newbie and asks if he's prepared because the higher-ups want him to enlist immediately. Sion says he'll enlist today, thinking he'll make preparations to save his brother. While his brother awaits trial, he's been gathering information on the youth center, and he confirmed the reality, a place easily compared to hell. That was the reason he came to settle things. Even if it's just one day before, he'll get Minsu out of that hell, so they should leave soon. And if he just follows orders, he'll be free quickly. The plan was perfect, and if they follow it, everything will work. But Yushang says to wait a moment. Minsu had punched the bald guy in the chin. He asks if that bastard is really doing this now, because he's going to kill him, while Yushang realizes his perfect plan fell apart from the start. The bald guy thinks the instructor looks new but must be a senior here, and either way, that room only fits 2 people, while the guy with the earring says he must be a rookie. Yusun asks if they're saying that fighting is part of the rules, and he's certain he'll be following the rules tonight. The one with the earring says he's not backing down. Yusheng looks at them with a sinister face. Minsu charges with a punch, telling Seijin to come at him. Seijin calls him an idiot, saying he thought swinging his arms like that would work. But he couldn't even keep his balance and was running like a madman, thinking there's something more important than that, because that rookie guard over there had restrained all his subordinates in that short amount of time, and Yushang says they felt good not following the rules. Seijin wonders what that guy is doing because he's someone he's never met before, but Minsu's foot reaches his face, asking where that bastard thought he was going, because that long-haired guy was fighting him, but no one was actually looking at him. Seijin says he had planned to behave properly and get out, but now he was a dog. Minsu tells him to cut it out because he didn't become a dog. Seijin quickly elbows Minsu. Lee wonders what's going on, because this guy is ridiculously strong. Seijin asks if he knows why a dog becomes a dog. Minsu yells that he doesn't care about that while trying to kick, but Ga blocks it, saying the dog was meant to be the leader there. However, he didn't know his place and tried to take control of the room, and Minsu thinks he can't get knocked out. Minsu grabs Seijin by the chest, saying that in this room he was the most pathetic one, and tries to punch, but Seijin counters it, landing a punch that knocks him to the ground. Now they're on top of each other. Minsu curses him, nearly losing consciousness. He thinks he got knocked down by the bastard who insulted his mother and couldn't even land a punch. Nearly unconscious, he stares at Yushang's feet, thinking that every time he got hit, that bastard's face flew into his mind. Yusung asks if he's alive. Minsu reflects on how much it sucks, but slowly answers yes. Yusung takes a deep breath at that moment, asking why this bastard is so light and if he even eats. Seijin asks why he's pulling him out, since he needs a lesson, while Yusung replies that he's going to solitary confinement because he needs to learn. The long-haired guy wants to know about fighting him since he seems good at it. Yusung suddenly remembers something, telling him to stop fighting because she asked him to tell this. Seijin is left speechless and talks about solitary confinement. In the solitary confinement room, Minsu lies on the ground cursing it all, thinking about solitary again and wondering how long he's been unconscious. And the next time he sees that long-haired bastard, he's going to take his life. Wondering what this is, because it feels like he forgot something important. But he notices something different at that moment, asking why the water isn't flowing and if the faucet is broken and what that means, that he can't clean his dirty hand. Yusheng says everything is already there and he shouldn't clean with his dirty hand. But now that he thinks about it, they didn't restrain his hands this time in solitary. Now he remembers what he forgot, so he punches the door, asking what that crazy guard was thinking to be there, and if he thinks he's some kind of hero, found a nice family and should live that way, but he should have just lived well since he got accepted into medical school. But instead, he ruined his own life by not abandoning a murderer like him, because if he gets locked up there with him, he'll feel too guilty, and Yusan responds that he's an idiot, but he believes his brother isn't a murderer. All of this is because he's his brother. Minsu starts crying and his brother begins teasing him, but the boy asks if, assuming everything goes well, he can get out of there, and Yusong says as long as he doesn't act like an idiot and land in solitary again, everything will go fine. Minsu says he has just one request. He wants to fight that long-haired bastard one more time. Yushin asks why he wants that if he's just going to lose. The boy replies that that bastard insulted his mother and he could take anything, but not someone insulting his mom. Yusheng tells him to fight him, because he'll teach him how to win, but if he loses again to the guy who insulted his mother, he'll take his own brother's life himself. There were 15 days left in solitary confinement. In the room, Gus Sejin was sitting in the corner, thinking. 15 days was too short for Minsu to gain real physical strength, and that's why what he'd be learning now was only how to knock Gus Sejin out. Minsu asks if he really thinks that's enough to beat that bastard. Yusheng says that if his analysis is correct, he'll win, and if not, he'll take his life, and asks if he memorized the tactics. Minsu tells his brother to be sure and trust him, then enters that room with the same rage as before. The delinquents complain that he's back and seems to have enjoyed his time in solitary. Minsu says he made them dogs, but now he's thought about it. The delinquents are impressed and ask why suddenly he decided to become a dog. Minsu replies that it seemed faster to become a dog. He should endure this for now, to when he has to take the enemy's hits and wait for the perfect opportunity. Holding back and watching as the opportunity approached. This was his masterstroke, but two of the delinquents were playing around with his back, drawing on it. He stands up angrily, saying he can't do this anymore. The two ask if he's changed his mind about being a dog now, and if he's going to switch up the order this time. Minsa thinks he should endure it. Yusan had asked him to hold on for 5 days and said he'd take care of his room since the guards control everything during lessons. So please, he shouldn't fight them because he'd hold the stage for 5 days. Minsu curses, saying he'll endure one more round. The delinquents ask if he's going to be an A-rank dog now, and if they're playing egg-breaking next. Minsu reflects that he just needs to hang on for 5 more days. A cloth is being dragged on the floor on day 2. Minsu was scrubbing the floor with all 4 limbs. He complains while someone in front of him makes car noises. The bald guy is on top of Moon, calling him an idiot. Minsu asks what that is, and the man answers it's a cat riding a robot vacuum. On day 3, during reflection time, Minsa tells those bastards to write properly because apologizing for being born isn't enough yet. On day 4, he and Moon relieve themselves side by side. The delinquents eat at his table. They seem a bit impressed by this. Moon is hesitant to eat that. Minsu eats enthusiastically, saying it's really good. He asks for another bowl, thinking that tomorrow is the 5th day and this nonsense ends. He vomits beside Moon, who asks if he's trying too hard, but then suddenly offers him something, handing him a chocolate bar, saying he'll feel weak if he does all this on an empty stomach, begging him to keep it a secret from the others because he bought it with his own money. Minsu holds the candy, calling out to him, but Moon tells him to keep doing his best as a dog. In the youth center courtyard, they play with a plastic disc. Minsu runs to catch it with his mouth. The delinquents say he plays the dog role really well, and complain about dog number 1 because he made a mistake during practice, saying that idiot was running around and was a legend, but then notices something and tells him to pay attention, because that was the kitchen unit. The members ask who he is and if this is a war. Moon asks if he wants to join a frisbee game. Sejin lies down looking up at the sky. He wonders what this is, and how that guy knows Minsu. Also, someone sent him here, and that could be his sister. Someone calls for the A3 leader. The kitchen unit asks if that's the dog, because he should watch properly since that bastard attacked their team first, and that means the kitchen unit is declaring war, so he should apologize and they'll let it go. A bald guy asks if he's afraid of a proper fight. Sejin tells him to forget it, that they shouldn't escalate things. There's no need to heat things up unnecessarily, and they should keep it reasonable. The kitchen unit asks if this is reasonable, then starts beating Moon repeatedly, asking if this is how he runs things, making them this mad. No need to cover things up about the kitchen unit. The bald guy says starting a war over a dog is too much. Minsu asks if the guards aren't going to step in. His comrade says the guards don't care about small fights and will leave it alone for now. Minsu hears Moon screaming for help, remembering when he gave him that chocolate, and holds the wrapper in his hand. Yusung had said snack time would be over soon and the fight would start. He just had to hold on until then. The kitchen unit keeps stomping on Moon. He says hitting feels satisfying and he'll keep doing it for a few more days. But a frisbee is thrown at his head, hitting the kitchen unit leader in the head, saying it was funny, making him fall to the ground. The Class A delinquents are stunned. Seijin gets up, shocked by this. Minsu had thrown it at the kitchen unit, complaining that those idiots came out to play, and if it was going to continue, they'd be treated like pigs here, since they lost their pride. Their dignity was thrown on the ground, and their spirit had been crushed. But no matter how bad it got, he shouldn't feel shame when his dog is beaten by another dog. Seijin calls out to him from behind, saying he told him not to interfere. A member of the kitchen unit grabs his shoulder, asking if this is for real, and says he'll report to the kitchen unit leader that he just declared war. Seijin lands an elbow strike to his face, saying to go ahead with war, but before that, they would deal with this rebel first. Minsu curses him, mentally asking for forgiveness. The delinquents gather around, wondering if this is going to be a revolution. Minsu thinks he ruined the plan again, not caring about all the effort put in. The crowd comments that Ge Seijin is going to crush Minsu. He reflects that he can't run from this mess, but will make sure to keep the promise he made. Ge Seijin says he looks like he's asking to be defeated again. Minsu asks if he wants to make a bet. Whoever wins the fight becomes the room leader. He believes that this time he's going to win. In the juvenile rehabilitation classroom, the kids who were arrested as minors have to attend basic classes there. During the lessons, all the staff remain outside in the yard, and in other words, what happens depends entirely on them. Phase 1 of the plan is to make Minsu the room leader. Today, Minsu will defeat Seijin and become the leader, so everything had been fully prepared. If Minsu can win against Seijin, everything will be in place, and it's time for the actors to enter. But he wonders why they aren't coming, looking out the window while others scream from outside, asking how he can't land even a single punch, since Seijin must be using some kind of divine power to dodge everything. Yusung smiles and sighs a little there, then grabs the window frame, using it to lift himself up, and shouts Lee Minsu's name, calling him an idiot as he gets punched by Seijin. Yusung announces Step 1, a cross punch aimed at him, then moves his hand and talks about Step 2, where he'd land a punch to the liver. Step 3 is a hook, followed by a mid-kick, a basic kick for Step 5, then a front kick, a spinning kick, and a roundhouse kick. And finally, as the last part of the plan, he throws a straight punch. Yusung says it's been a while since his brother saw this, so it should look familiar, and Minsu comments that he remembers everything he learned as a kid, but wonders if that's really enough to beat him, because Seijin is strong. His brother explains that Seijin fights well for someone who's never trained, and Minsu asks if that's natural talent, and Yusung says he lacks flow in his techniques. In short, he has no proper combination, so Seijin is just an ordinary guy who fights well, but he could never beat someone who is trained. Minsu says he's still lost to him and couldn't even land a punch, and that even if he learns what's being taught. Yusung replies that's exactly why he needs to fight in the classroom, but his brother doesn't understand what would be different about fighting there. His brother tells him that if Seijin keeps dodging the hits, eventually he'll get cornered, and the classroom has lots of places to trap him, so he should use the environment to pin him down. Once that combination stops Seijin, the crowd shouts that this fight is boring, since the murderer is just a loser who doesn't know how to fight properly. Minsu thinks this is bad, because there are no barriers on the battlefield. Yusung runs up closer to the fight, calling Lee Minsu an idiot because he never listens, but there are too many people and he can't see what's going on. Still, he needs to stop this fight now regardless of the plan, so he shouts to stop the fight. However, the director asks what he's doing. That man is eating popcorn. The director asks why he's trying to ruin his fun. Yusung salutes the superior and says the kids are fighting and he was about to stop it, and the director asks why, and if he enjoys watching the animal kingdom. Yusung is a bit confused by that, but the director explains what happens when out-of-place life forms like rats appear in the middle of a place they don't belong. He says a hungry snake will try to eat the rat in one of those attempts, but asks if Yusung knows what the film crew would do. He answers that they would do nothing, because a snake eating a rat is part of the natural order. And just like that, he shouldn't interfere in the fight, respecting the natural order, and besides, watching this fight is very entertaining, and so Yusung thinks this guy is insane. The director asks why he doesn't join him and enjoy the show, while Minsu steps in front of Seijin, thinking he just needs to land one punch, so he gets ready to throw a punch. A hook that would be a feint, but Seijin just dodges, landing a punch to the face of his subordinate while asking what he was doing. Minsu thinks that if he could just land his combo, it would be over, and please just let him land at least one hit. So he has to trap him with this, preparing for step 2. Seijin strikes the back of his neck and asks why he keeps counting numbers and if he's trying to teach him. Minsu tries to land strike 3, and Seijin dodges, saying he was right because 2 comes after 1, and 3 is followed by 4, 5, 6, and 7, and Minsu thinks his reach is short, he has no strategy, and his stamina is drained. Besides that, there's no wall to complete his combo. All he can do is take the hits, getting kicked. The delinquents blocking his way ask why he's heading over there. Yusung thinks he should just give up because he has no form, but he'll make a new plan later. The delinquents who got hit tell him to stay away. Minsu reflects that if this keeps up, he'll lose just like last time, and if that's the case, he might as well surrender without getting hurt any further. The delinquents push him away right after. He looks back, confused. The delinquents ask what he's doing without fighting back, because if he gives up, he'll have to deal with him. Seijin asks what Mommy's boy is doing and if he's looking for her. Minsu cracks a smile. His enemy wants to know what's so funny, and the boy says it's nothing bad. He just remembered something, a way to land his combo on him. The delinquents at the center scream for them to get back to fighting and end the match already. Seijin tells Mommy's boy to finish it too because time's running out. Minsu says it's perfect because he was also planning to end it, while thinking he's figured out how to use the combo, but he wonders how to lure him in. While he was being taught, Minsu asked what would happen if he pushed Seijin and didn't trap him. Yusung says he understood, while Minsu says no matter how much he thought about it, he couldn't picture Seijin being trapped and asks if there's another idea. His brother suggests that after pushing him into the hallway, he could fake a move by going in closer, and Minsu says he had already thought of that. But even if he tries it, it might not work and could be pointless, and Yusung says in that case, he'll teach him a magic word that'll make Seijin lose it. Minsu says he had something like that this whole time and should have told him earlier. Yusung replies that when he hears this word, Seijin will completely lose his composure. Minsu calls his opponent's attention, asking if Gasemin is pretty. His brother angrily calls him Mommy's boy while rushing in to punch him, demanding to know where he learned that name, while Minsu strikes his face, thinking the magic word worked. Seijin asks how he knows his sister. Minsu repeats the Mommy's boy nickname, and asks if that was the best insult he could come up with, while Seijin realizes he blocked his punch. Minsu grabs his hair, saying he always cried over his sister, always running to her, so now he shouldn't cry for her anymore. Seijin demands what knowing his sister has to do with this fight, thinking that if he just moves back before the short punches hit, but he's driven into the crowd, being told to get out of there. Minsu lands an uppercut on him, saying that this time it's right here. Seijin reflects there's no room to dodge, and he attacked first, but he realizes his arm is trapped and gets punched in the liver. Seijin curses him, realizing he's trapped and his movements are restricted. Then he gets hit in the face with an uppercut that leaves him no time to think. Yusung thinks this guy had told him to use the desks or chairs in the room, but he's using the audience as walls instead. Seijin gets hit repeatedly, thinking he needs to get out of there because he can't dodge or counter like this. So in this specific situation, he decides to dodge to the side and get away. But Minsu hits his calf with a low kick, then follows with a cross, saying he's going back to step 1. Seijin thinks his right side is blocked, so he'll try the other side. However, Minsu lands a medium kick to his abdomen, asking where he thought he was going. Seijin reflects that he can't escape, and on top of that, this guy looks even bigger than before. Minsu strikes him over and over with attacks 1 through 3. Seijin thinks he can't land a single hit and should just swing his fist, but Minsu dodges his punches, asking what he's even trying to do, and if he was just going to randomly keep hitting until one landed. And he had told him not to insult his mother, while landing another straight punch. Just thinking about it made him even angrier, so he asks if he even knows. Seijin thinks he can't take any more hits and his next attack has to land, but he gets hit on the chin by Minsu, who asks what he knows about him or his mother, so he better apologize now. Seijin is falling to the ground as he's struck. Minsu lands the final blow, telling him to apologize to his mother. Everyone in the crowd is shocked, including the members of Room A. Minsu remains standing, saying that Bastard didn't even apologize in the end. People comment that now Minsu is the leader and Seijin is weak, but the director approaches and tells everyone to step aside because they have to salute. The delinquents split into 2 lines and salute the leader while making pig noises. Then the director says he didn't think he'd win, but he did. And as expected, the animal kingdom is fascinating because a rat defeated a snake. He's been hiding himself ever since he got here, and now he's even getting into fights. Yusung asks about Seijin, and the director says to throw him into solitary or something. The brothers meet eyes. Yusong walks behind him, asking who he takes after to be so disobedient, and Minsu answers who else? He got it from his brother. Yusong thinks it's now time to move to phase 2 of the plan. A sculpture stands in a room. Semin asks if his brother ended up in solitary. Yusong answers that it wasn't part of the plan, but things just happened. The girl tells him to stop moving, because if he keeps moving, he'll ruin the composition. Yusong asks how long this will take because this pose is really hard to hold. The girl asks about that other one, but the boy denies it because he was completely naked in it. Semin tells him to stop thinking because it's over now, and Yusong asks if he can look, while the girl says he ruined it by moving a bit, but it should be enough to get into a top art school. Yusong gets annoyed, asking if this is supposed to be art, but Semin says he looks mad, but his model was annoying too. However, maybe it was because of his brother, but he doesn't need to apologize because he ended up in solitary by asking for it, though now she feels like he owes her one. Either way, she has a problem, and Yusong asks if it's because of the painting. But the girl says no, her brother got involved with the cooking club, and it was like getting hit by someone with a trash can. Anyway, he became part of the girls' cooking club, and sometimes they interact with the boys' group. They're a very close-knit group, and hitting one of them is like hitting a brother. Among them, there's one guy they have to deal with carefully, the leader of the cooking club, Jang Dubo, who asks if he's Lee Minsu. Minsu confirms that's his name. He hands over some goo, saying he gave him a lot. But Jang Dubo is a clueless idiot, and Yusong wonders why someone like that would be scary, gentle, dumb, and clueless, but the girl says that's exactly why he's terrifying, because just from someone complaining about his food, he killed 2 guards. So Dubo says his boys suffered a beating from him, so he deserves that amount of food, and he'll regret messing with the cooking club. Minsu asks what he's talking about, and if he really did mess with the cooking team. Dubo asks if he's not Lee Minsu, and the boy confirms, saying it's a common name, then apologizes. But the cooks say he's a liar, it's really him. Minsu had already run far from the cafeteria. He complains that this time was way too close. In the middle of a massive mansion, Han Mansu, the president of South Korea, thanks everyone for coming to the summer meeting. 3 representatives from different parties arrive there. The president greets the chubby representative, saying he looks radiant. He greets the other while asking everyone to set aside rivalries and focus on a good message for the public, and finally shakes Kang's hand. The two smile for the camera. The president says it's been a while since they were opponents in the presidential race, and for the sake of the nation, he must work well as his subordinate, slapping the congressman on the butt. Kang wonders what the hell is wrong with this guy, because he just slapped him in front of the entire nation. Kang yells, asking how he dares to do this, and charges in to punch him, beating him for humiliating him. But it was just a punching bag that he keeps pounding on. He says his father is heading into disgrace and wants to know what he thinks about that. Yushin says that bringing down President Han Mansu was easier than he thought, because all they need to do is destroy his political foundation, the Juvenile Rehabilitation Center. Kang says that's the reason he sent him and wants to know if there's any progress. Yushin says what he saw inside the Juvenile Rehabilitation Center was something the president hadn't used to persuade the public, forcing kids to use violence against each other, where various forms of abuse are applied and fights are deliberately ignored. So that place isn't for children, it's pure hell. His father claps his hands, saying it's amazing and that the rehab center is his weak spot. Yusung says that if he can leak it and apply the right pressure, but his father says that's still not enough, because juvenile offenders are still rule breakers and victims would rather see them suffer. All Mansu did was promise future improvements in line with human rights, so Yushang has to dig deeper to get something out of this. The boy repeats that it's not enough. Even in a situation like this, it's not enough. The delinquents were in an extremely uncomfortable position. They scream that they're crabs. The director watches from his chair, commenting that today they'll have crab soup, and the guard next to him says he'll inform the kitchen team. Minsu imitates a crab while cursing the situation. Wondering what time it is since this started, he's already reached his limit. He messes up the crab phrase but quickly corrects himself, then notices who that guard is. His brother orders Lee Minsu out of the position, because he'll separate the drills, but as a lobster this time. Minsu curses the situation for having become a lobster. Yusan whispers that if he just releases him, it'll be suspicious. But now he'll explain phase 2 of the plan. The Juvenile Rehabilitation Center runs on a system of rewards and penalties. With 100 reward points, he gets reviewed for parole. Currently, Lee Minsu's score is -50, having earned 0 points since arriving and only causing problems. Minsu asks how to earn points, and Yushang calls him a bastard, because from now on, the fastest way to earn lots of points is to become a volunteer assistant for the kitchen team. Minsu complains that's where that bastard is, and he'll lose his life if he goes there. Those guys will beat him up. But he doesn't care and says he'll just stay there forever. A cop walks by and tells Yushang good work, while Minsu keeps throwing a fit. Another officer salutes him again for the good work. Minsu yells that he'll do anything except join the kitchen team. Yusheng agrees and says he'll look for something better. In the late afternoon of that same day, the sound of falling leaves and birds chirping, the short breeze shaking the curtains. It was a good time for Minsu to take a nap, and this was the last peace he'd have, as a noise interrupts him. Minsu tells his subordinates to let him sleep, because they're still making too much noise while cleaning the floor, and they don't need to be robot vacuums anymore. The subordinates say the cleaning is almost done. Minsu says they earn 1 point each time they clean the room and asks how long it will take. The officers ask if the cleaning is done, and Minsu confirms. So they say Lee should follow them to his new post since he signed up for the volunteer job. Minsu thinks Kang Yusong is the best and confirms it, but he's disappointed upon arriving at the place. Dubo asks if it's the liar Minsu again. Minsu thinks his brother had promised not to sign him up there. Kang Yusong was a bastard for that. The cook, named Jang Dubo, a man who dreams of becoming a top chef in Korea, his right hand trained to hold a 3-kilogram iron pan and flit 2 kilograms of food with ease. His left hand is optimized for delicate tasks. To criticize his food means an insult to Jang Dubo. Dubo says he has to endure this, but there's nothing he can do since there's no real culinary talent around that could help him in that place. The noodles are burning in a pot. One of the cooks says he's managed to make oil and now his country is a producer. Others question if it looked like the wax color of soybean oil soup. Dubo tells him to stop that, but he thinks he needs to calm down, reminding himself that the word chief means the head of a group and that he must take care of his tribe members. He grabs an empty pot, saying that Minsu was different because he had offended his tribe, and so he approaches him while cooking, since he would be defeated in the name of the cooking team. But Dubo notices something different. Minsu's food looked beautiful, while he was doing several things with 2 pans in hand. Dubo calls him a little idiot, lifting him up high while holding him, and asks where he learned to cook, while Minsu says he was helping at the orphanage, wanting to know why Dubo was crying, while the big guy says he finally found him and knew this day would come. He swings him from side to side, saying he loved him for being the treasure of the cooking team. Some people were eating the supplies. They say it was supposed to make Dubo and Minsu fight, but at this point, they were screwed, since Dubo was holding him like that, wondering what they should do to make Dubo hate the boy, while his companion replies that if he cooked badly, Dubo would hate him. So they decide to do that immediately, and Minsu was as good as dead meat. Yusong suddenly enters the room asking if it was them. He says he'd been wondering why the supplies kept disappearing. If they're stealing from the stock, they'd have to face the consequences. He adds that he already took care of those who messed with Minsu, and he had told him not to be on the kitchen team but was worried. Yet Minsu seemed to be adapting well. He wonders who placed Minsu on the cooking team. Since he didn't do it, he heads to the director's office. 2 guards greet him, talking about the cooking team, asking excitedly if they fought. The guards say no, but today was his favorite meal, the rice omelette. So the director says he hopes for a fight during the break, but dodges the topic when the guards question him. Both guards sing a Japanese song for the food, in a way the president found pleasing, and so he eats, saying it was very tasty. In the morning at the reformatory cafeteria, Dubo asks if everyone is ready, because today was the special day that only comes once a month, and they must be careful preparing it. First, they must begin by cleaning with a bar of soap. Then they must grate the soap on a grater, adding 24 units of olive oil to the soup and heating it at twice the temperature. Then finally using the earth powder, the special ingredient. Finally, they must squeeze tangerine juice to add vitamin E, getting a mix of fragrance and effectiveness. Then with all the ingredients well mixed, they must set it aside for a moment. And finally, it was ready, while Minsu asks if it was to be eaten. But Dubo denies it, since it was the natural hair cream of the cooking team, so they must be careful this time, while Minsu asks why hair cream that wasn't food, and what made this day so special. So Dubo explains that it's the day new ingredients arrive, because it was delivery day. That's when they meet the girls from the Female Correction Center, who greet Dubo. Once a month, the cafeteria receives supplies and has to share with the girls from the cooking team. So one of the girls holds a box saying it was too heavy, but a boy grabs it saying girls shouldn't carry heavy things, and that boys should do it, smiling maniacally. Dubo says that's not enough because a real man can carry much more, so he adds more boxes for them to carry to the girls. But some of the girls ask what was up with Minsu, because he was cute and small, and even cuter when angry. Dubo thinks that Bastard was carrying boxes and flirting with the girls, but one of the girls grabs Dubo's shirt. The giant turns around right after. Then she hands him a letter, saying he should take it before the other girls see it. Dubo thinks there's no helping it, because it was a love letter. The girl walks away smiling at Dubo. He imagines her grabbing his arm dressed as a bride and walking among other people. She calls out Dubo's name, asking what their children's names would be. Dubo calls out to a little girl named Yeji, asking her to look, calling out all their children's names to check if they're ready for the photo. With a huge smile, thinking his time had come. But he goes to see what kind of romantic serenade she wrote, only to find out the letter was actually addressed to Minsu. Dubo becomes absolutely furious upon seeing that. Starting to tear up in his eye, Minsu carries a box to the storage room, saying that the bastards from the cooking team were too busy helping the girls. Du Boran stands behind him, calling out to the leader of Group A, Lee Minsu. The boy asks if Du Boran needs something, but the man asks if he knows what November 22nd was, but the boy says no. Du Boran explains it was his 3rd wedding anniversary and asks if he knows Yejin. Minsu wants to know why his friend is acting so strange, and the man says that Yejin was his 5th daughter, a ponytailed girl who would have been born into a beautiful world if he hadn't betrayed him. So now he would take his life, because he would crush the man who stole his wife. Minsu asks what the hell that was all of a sudden, dodging Dubo's punch that destroyed his desk. Minsu asks if he was trying to kill him and says that if he hadn't dodged, he would have lost his head. Du Boram tells him to go to hell because he was his daughter's enemy in the future and had pretended to be nice just to stab him in the back. Minsu kicks him, calling him a psychopath, saying they were just going to fight this time. Du Boram grabs his leg, saying that he and So Young loved each other deeply in his imagined future. Minsu trembles on the floor after being hit. Du Boran says he took her from him, but the giant's hand was stuck in a chair. Minsu charges forward, saying that if he could handle his brute right hand, he'd just be a weakling, but he's hit by a left punch. Minsu thinks his arms are so long he can't even get close, and his left punch is strong too. It was like getting hit by a rock. Then he gets thrown far away by the brute. Minsu thinks that at least his right hand is restrained for now. Du Boran says he'll take So Young on a date while freeing himself. The date would be a walk in Bukhansan, where the first time they held hands would be a PC cafe. Minsu thinks he's cornered this time, finding himself in a wall corridor. Du Boran talks about their first kiss as he prepares to punch, which would have been on Myeongdong Street, but he notices something different, while Minsu says he doesn't even know who So Young is, and his date plans suck, which means that any girl would hate going out with him. Then he grabs Du Boram. That way, he'd reverse their positions like last time and land the combo, but he can't even move him. Du Boram grabs his head, saying he stole his pure love, and also stole his daughter's future. His punishment would be to lose his life, as Minsu realizes he can't dodge this. But the boy grabs a bag of flour and throws it in Du Boram's face. The girls outside think it's exhausting, and they don't even cook at home, but now they're chefs. One of the girls grabs a box and says it must be the boys and asks who will take it. The girls say they don't want to go because Dubo is scary since he beat up a guy named Changsu. But one girl says she'll go because she thinks Dubo is the cute type. Minsu begs him to stop following him while Dubo ignores him until he starts running, slightly out of breath, telling him to come there so he can be executed. But an A hits his face. Minsu says the execution was his face. Now he smells like chicken, so he better get out of there. Du Boram crushes a kettle, saying he'll kill Lee Minsu, throwing things at him. Minsu thinks that if he keeps throwing things like that, he'll end up killing someone, while Du Boran says that's the point, then grabs a pan full of oil and throws it at Lee Minsu. The girl approaches, humming. She opens the door, asking to come in, because the boys had forgotten things in the back. Du Boran is stunned as the oil flies, saying it couldn't be helped, since he was getting close to the girl. But Minsu moves in right after, hugging the girl to keep the oil from hitting her, but getting hit in her place. She asks what just happened. Yusung runs to the infirmary, thinking that this couldn't have happened to Minsu. He came there to protect him and he can't be hurt. So he asks if Lee Minsu from A3 is there. Yusung nervously opens the curtain, looking at his brother's bed, seeing a skeleton lying on the bed. Minsu's voice says that's how he ended up this way. Getting out of bed, he asks if he looked like a skeleton, and luckily it wasn't hot oil or he really would have become one. Yusung approaches as his brother apologizes, saying his joke had gone too far, but he only gets a hug in return. Yusung thanks him because he was worried about him. Minsu just agrees with his brother, apologizing for making him worry. The nurse tells him not to touch his skeleton because he shouldn't move it. Yusung asks if, after everything, he still wants to volunteer in the kitchen, and Minsu says it was the fastest way to earn points. It was a little scary, but his brother would help him, and he wanted to know how to take down Dubo. Yusung asks if he was ready for that. The director asks if this was Sergeant Kang's idea, and what kind of training this was. Yusung says this exercise was meant to teach kids who challenge authority in that place. The director appreciates it and says it's very creative, but wants to know where the stones came from. and Yushang says he brought them from the mountain out back. Minsu curses Kang Yuzhong for not training him normally. His brother says he was doing fine and was ready for the day. Minsu asks if that means he can fight Dubo now, but Yushang denies it, now pointing to a bigger stone because he was going to roll on his own. Minsu curses his brother while doing it, rolling backward with all his strength. Yushang says he was doing well and can stop now. Minsu tries asking again if he can fight Dubo yet, but Yushang says no, because the next one was that gray rock, so he makes the same effort as before, cursing his brother while rolling the stone. Yushang says he did a great job. Minsu says he's going to die at this rate. His brother asks if he thinks it's easy to beat someone in a higher weight class, and says if he can move more freely he could win. Then he adds the but to the equation. Minsu wonders if a person can even move that massive rock. In the solitary confinement room, Seijin says it's been a week since he was sent there. He still doesn't understand why he lost, since he couldn't land a punch, but it happened because he let his guard down, and if they fight again, he'd definitely win, and that means, but now it was time to think about something else. His toilet paper had already run out and the water wasn't running anymore. He had already used one sleeve. Only one option remained, which was to rip the rest of his uniform, so he tears off a piece of it, thinking that if he used it now, he wouldn't have any next time. But a roll of toilet paper is thrown in through the window. Seijin stares at the paper that had been tossed to him from afar. Yushin tells him to stop using random stuff and clean himself properly with that, because they had something to talk about, asking if he finished cleaning because he was coming in, but there was no one in the room. Yushin turns to the side. Seijin asks how he knows his sister, but Yushin dodges the attack and grabs his arm, pinning him down to the floor. He realized Yuzong was strong, but he was even stronger than expected, saying a sneak attack was disappointing. Seijin thinks he's coming. As Yuzong tries to punch him, the boy instinctively shuts his eyes, but Yuzong says if he's so curious, he should ask her directly, and calls Gasemen. At a plastic surgery, dermatology, and obesity clinic, a call from Yuzong reaches the girl, saved in her phone as husband candidate. She answers, calling him Kang, asking if he's already met Seijin. Seijin tries to talk to her, asking why Yusong has her number and if his sister has already been released from the female rehabilitation center. Semen says she has a secret to share and wants Yusong to cover his ears, making Seijin promise he did. The girl starts cursing her brother, asking if he has poop where his brain should be for thinking she was easy to manipulate. Then she curses Seijin in several ways in a row. The boy is left speechless by it. That giant rock was still at the training center. Minsu tries to move it with his legs, but no result comes from it except wasted effort. His classmates watch while chatting. Minsu asks if it moved, but Moon says no, and his classmates encourage him to give up. But if the boy moves that thing, he'll get to fight Dubo. There are many strong people in the prison, but Dubo seemed to be the strongest, and if you get hit by his right arm, it's over. Since they must have seen how Changsu ended up after getting hit by that right arm, and Minsu could end up the same way. The boy curses everything because he was going to move no matter what. His sister says she raised him with so much love, and he turned into this idiot who can't even recognize who's been helping him. Seijin puts the phone on the ground, ready to hang up the call, then presses the big red button. Semen says he hung up, and now he's just asking to die, and didn't even tell him to be careful yet. The clinic nurse calls the girl to tell her the doctor is waiting. Yusung asks if the call ended as he takes his hand off his ear, but notices Seijin sitting on the floor saying this was exhausting. However, he and his sister were on the same side, and he is Minsu's older brother, asking if it was him who taught him how to fight, because he'd do whatever he said as long as he taught him to. How could he fight others? In the cafeteria of the Juvenile Rehabilitation Center, some delinquents say they got punished because food had been disappearing, and by now they might get kicked out of the cooking team. But ever since Minsu and Dubo fought, the giant had gone completely insane. Minsu bursts through the door yelling that he's arrived, while the delinquents yell that because of him, Dubo lost his mind. As the giant just gets angrier, repeating his name, standing up with a few laughs, saying it was all his fault. Minsu gets ready to fight, asking if Dubo knows why he's not popular with girls. Dubo stops in front of the boy, repeating the question, but he answers it's because Dubo is ugly as hell, then laughs at him. The giant clenches his teeth as he stares at Minsu, shouting that he's going to kill him. The delinquents yell that this crazy bastard is in trouble for provoking Dubo. Then the giant charges at him, saying it's all his fault. Minsu starts running too, asking why he's being cursed just for being ugly, and so they keep running in circles around the kitchen table, until Dubo starts getting tired, breathing heavily, kneeling on the floor while calling Minsu, saying he'll crush him, but he only smashes the table again. Minsu asks if he has no brain for falling for the same trick again, and without his right hand, he's just a rat. But his face gets hit by Dubo's left fist, saying he doesn't seem to think either, since he's got shorter arms but still insists on challenging him. But Minsu grabs the giant's arm, saying he moved before he thought, then lifts himself off the ground with his legs, pulling Dubo's arm close to his neck, since he fell right into his plan. The director is in a fancy room saying he always works hard for Gangpyo, and they prepared this for the director. Since today is a special event, he would be cooking for him. It was a smoked meal with semi-dried Alaskan pollock. The director asks if he has a special drink too, and Yushong agrees, combining 2 sodas, then shaking them with both hands. This special drink was called Hybrid Starlight Flavor. The director says it really is a divine drink and captures both the freshness of peach and the taste of grape together. Yushong asks him to now enjoy the dinner show. Du Boram wonders if he finally stopped running around, and with his right hand, he was asking to be executed. Du Boram can't get his hand close to Minsu. While the boy punches him in the face, Du Boram thinks that with his hand trapped, he can't move, wondering where this bastard learned these grappling techniques, since he thought he could win with strength alone. But he's hit several times by Lee Minsu. He had asked Yuzhan why he had to do this, and if he couldn't corner him like they did with Sejun. Yusheng tells him to think before speaking, because the difference between him and Sejun was just 1 weight class, so it was possible. But the weight difference between him and Dubo is 3 classes, so he'll be the only one begging not to get caught. Minsu asks if he wanted to make his weight class match Dubo's, but his brother says that's impossible in a short time. Since it's a matter of science, he should know why he was able to move those rocks before if they were heavier than him. The answer is the principle of the lever, and he should know what that is, being a student, but Minsu looks kind of lost. Right now, human legs also move with the principle of the lever, and if he can become a lever to move those rocks. Minsu stares at the ground while trying to move the last rock, moving her slightly out of the way, since he could also push Dubo. The giant wonders why he can't deal with this little brat, but his face is struck by Minsu's fist right after. Minsu hits him several times, saying he suffered a lot because of him. Yusung asks if the director was enjoying the show, but the director says it's good, though it's easy to guess will win, because he should look at Dubo's expression. He didn't even seem to feel pain, and there's no way that little guy could beat this giant. Still, Minsu was starting to look exhausted, and in the end, he couldn't ignore the weight class difference. Yusung asks if he's up for a bet, because he'd bet on Minsu. The director says that's good and that he seemed confident in this reckless bet. Yusheng says exactly that, while thinking that he believes punches to the face won't work due to the weight difference. The basic principle of striking in martial arts is to protect the face and head, and the reason for that is because most of the vulnerable areas are located on the face and head. Many vital points are concentrated in the head, like the eyes, forehead, nose, ears, and more. But among them, the most critical is the chin, which Minsu manages to strike on Du Boram. Hitting the chin shakes the brain and inner ear, momentarily throwing off balance. Weight class difference matters in amateur fights, but in the end, professional technique comes first. Minsu strikes Du Boram's nose, making the man hallucinate right after, thinking of the girl waving goodbye to him, then begs her not to leave, falling to the ground from the blow that hit him. Du Boram thinks that his future and his child were walking away, and Soki falls unconscious, but they all soon realize there was no helping it. He lost just like that. The director yells that he was wrong and Du Boram lost, wondering how he knew that little rat would win. Yusung replies that he couldn't know. It was a gamble. The director walks off saying it was interesting and that he should start thinking about what his reward will be. Minsu sits on top of Du Boram thinking it's finally over and that the training was hell, but he wants to know what that letter was. It says it was for the leader of Class A, and he wonders if it was about Sejun. The delinquents say that Du Boram got confused and tried to take his life. Minsu gets mad thinking that was it. The reason he suffered all this time was because Du Boram misunderstood a letter from Sejun. He then punches the giant's face several times while the delinquents try to stop him. Meanwhile, in a restricted area for authorized personnel, 2 guards supervise that door, guarding a massive hallway with another door. They say the next candidate for the selection is like a snake. With Kang Sejun taken down and now Dubo too, some people playing poker comment that Dubo was the strongest in Gangpyo. The guy at the corner of the table asks who the 2 candidates were, wanting to know who's left, and the first one is, slamming a hammer down hard. They must have already heard the rumors. The MZ gang leader known in the Daeyeondong area, construction team supervisor Lee Kangman. The other person was cutting a metal cable with a power saw, wearing a mask for protection. Sungcheol, a member of the maintenance team. They think Lee Kangman makes sense on the list, but Sungcheol is odd as a candidate since he's not even a leader. Wondering why Jisoo isn't just picking one, since the more candidates there are, the more fun the fights will be to watch. The guy says he was just killing time too, but after hearing all this, his curiosity was piqued, because he's going to name Lee Minsu as his candidate, the #1 ranked in Gangpyo Reformatory Center, Jisoo. Thanks to the fight with Dubo, he was sent to solitary confinement, but because of that, he has a chance to escape the mess. But at the same time, while Dubo was in solitary confinement, he had to work hard in the kitchen duty. The delinquents were just messing around, saying Minsu was amazing, and that the rice in the pot was multiplying in size. Also playing around with the octopus and crab meat. A kettle was burning nearby. Minsu tells the idiots to stop and for Dubo to hurry back. The girls greet the boys saying that Dubo was sent to solitary confinement. The delinquents keep organizing the boxes for the girls, but someone catches Minsu's attention. The girl thanks him one last time since he saved her from the oil. Minsu says it wasn't hot, so it wasn't a big deal. However, the girl says that even so, she hands him a letter. Minsu asks if he should give it to Sujin, but the girl turns around saying it was for Minsu, and that it was a secret. The top of the letter was addressed to Dear Minsu. The boy blushes, imagining his whole life with that girl. The letter called Minsu dear because a few days ago, when the eye was about to hit her, when she thought everything was over, Minsu saved her by hugging her. Now she knows who he is, but the first time she saw him was when she was walking after eating. A frisbee had been thrown, hitting the delinquent's chin. The girl was surprised while stuck behind the fence. That was the day he fought Sejun. She saw his wild eyes that day, like a badger or something like that, blushing as she thought about him. After that day, she held her breath for him. She heats a tweezer over the fire, asking if he knew what she had to do to deliver that letter today, then smoothing her hair with a hot tweezer. A friend comments that her hair looks fine now and they should put on makeup. The girl tries to say there's no makeup there, but her friend replies that if they don't have it, they can just make some. So they should get some water and mix it on the magazine page with the color they needed, then apply it to the right area, making her lips look more lively. The girls say that it's good enough to confess, and that Sarah looked really pretty. In the letter, she asked if Minsu thought she looked beautiful today, because he should give her an answer the next time they meet. The delinquents call him a traitor because he got a girlfriend before them and was happy over a letter. Minsu says he was just happy to receive it. The guys ask why they only ever get letters from their moms or from Sejun. Then the boy shows the letter to his friends, with the girl looking a bit obsessed with him. Yusung goes to the director's office to enter, saying he had been looking for him. The director says it's been 3 months since Sergeant Kang enlisted there. He passed the military academy exam and the surgeon exam at incredible speed, and on top of that, he was top of his class. Someone that talented ending up in his rehab center was an incredible stroke of luck. Yusheng says he works hard for the director and for the nation, while the man responds that he has high expectations for him. The boy thinks that he needs to build the director's trust to find a way to raise Minsu's score. But the director says he saw something interesting on the camera footage. He and Lee Minsu seemed very close, so he wants to know what their relationship is. In the reform school's shower room, Minsu was in his shower. He thinks that place is hell, because he couldn't even wash properly with that tiny bar of soap. But someone offers him a bottle of shampoo. Minsu wonders how he had that, and how he managed to get shampoo in the rehab center. Jisoo just stares at him. To get Minsu out of the center, they have to hide the fact that they're brothers. Since he's adopted, no one knows they're related, but he wonders what that could mean. The director asks what the relationship between them is. Yusheng thinks he needs to come up with a proper excuse for that. The director asks what it could be, like the relationship between a teacher and a student, since he saw everything, like him teaching Minsu how to fight. Now he made a bet knowing his student would win because he was good at fighting. Yuson replies that Minsu wanted to get stronger, thinking the director had misunderstood and feeling relieved. But the director tells him not to get too close to trash. Yuson turns and says he'll go prepare the outdoor activities now. The director sits in his chair saying that Minsu is an interesting guy. Dialing calls on his phone. The director orders someone to dig into Kang's family background because he felt there was something to find. And this was getting really interesting. Sejun sits in his solitary confinement, his hair covering his face, while thinking about the call with his sister and how she insulted him in so many ways. Sejun says it's a relief because his sister managed to escape from the girls' center. He hears some crying in the distance. Someone was crying in the room next door. Du Baran was sitting on the floor, devastated, saying it wasn't fair and that it was all Lee Minsu's fault. Yuson opens the door and says it wasn't Minsu's fault what happened to him. Dubo says that because of Minsu, his life was ruined and he stole his wife and child. Kane explains that the leader of Class A mentioned in the letter wasn't Minsu, but Sejun, and he didn't know the leader had changed. The giant panics, saying he was wrong and tried to hurt Minsu while Sejun was a bastard and now lifeless. Yuson replies that it's too early to jump to conclusions. He shows a photo of Semin and Sejun hugging. Dubo wonders why she was taking a picture close to that bastard, and the world only cares about appearances, since guess Sejun took his goddess from him. Yusheng says they're siblings, with Sejun being the younger one. Dubo places his face against the bars saying that Sejun is his brother-in-law, and he loves him. The guard looks back, while Sejun, annoyed, asks who that pig is calling brother-in-law. Dubo says he's going to cook delicious food for him from now on since they're family. The two start arguing in the middle of the hallway. Yushin says this situation was expected, while thinking that now Minsu just needs to collect points. But on another front, he has something to investigate, a dark secret in the reformatory center that the director is hiding. But to take down the president, he needs an even bigger weakness. Even as a prison officer, he can't access the restricted area, so something must be hidden there. But he notices something different approaching, a wheelbarrow carrying a human body, which was unconscious from being beaten so badly. Yuson wonders what happened inside there, then notices something else unusual, a man in red clothing entering the room. Yushun reflects on the red uniform, saying he needs to investigate more about all of it. Minsu thanks them for delivering the shampoo earlier since it had been a while since he washed his hair properly. But that guy in front of him, Jinsu, picks up his shirt from the ground, putting his sleeve on right after. Minsu asks if his prison uniform is red, and he also doesn't have the rank symbol tattooed on his abdomen. Seijin asks why he let him win, since there was no way he'd lose to Minsu, and Dubo asks the same thing. The guy says he was careless and the kid had a strategy ready. Dubo says it was the same with him, he was planning to play around a little, but when he realized it, he was already in Ninsu's trap. Seijin says they should start paying more attention to Lee Ninsu. Dubo says he'd do that, but Minsu had already managed to take over the kitchen, and now they're planning to make him the candidate instead of them. Seijin tells him not to make him laugh, because he's the candidate and will prove for himself that he's going to reach the top, and take it all back from that humiliation, without a single mistake this time. Then he's called by I'm Jisoo. Jisoo asks if he is Lee Minsu, while the guy asks how he knows him since he must have seen his name. Jisoo approaches quickly to touch Minsu, but only pats his head, while Minsu asks why he's being touched. Jisoo says he's smaller than he expected, and wants to know how he won, while the guy gets annoyed for being called short. But the blonde man says this time he came to meet him, but next time he'll be the one to go find him, so he'll be waiting for that time soon. Minsu wonders what's up with this weird guy. A ramen pot made with fish head was on the stove. Minsu asks who put fish in his sacred ramen, while a delinquent says it was him. The guy just decides he'll eat it, but the delinquents are left wide-eyed and nervous. Minsu asks why they're staring at him instead of eating. Dubo was already behind him before he finished his sentence. He raises his arms in the air, as Minsu turns around cautiously, but the giant apologizes for everything, saying he made a mistake and ended up tormenting him, and since Seijin became his brother-in-law, he can't get revenge anymore. Minsu asks what he's talking about, saying he'll accept the apology and they should just sit and eat ramen together. Dubo asks if he's really going to forgive him so they can eat together. The delinquents say Minsu had already gotten a confession from another girl. Dubo gets mad again hearing that, charging at Minsu for looking at his wife number 2 again. Minsu says it's fine because tomorrow he's going to deliver Sarah's letter, but he wants to know why he ended up having to come all the way here. Minsu lies down on the floor and says he doesn't want to go to volunteer work because he wants to meet Sarah to give her the letter. Someone suddenly approaches the group. An ugly guy asks if they want to be his subordinates because he was going to buy some chickens for them. The delinquents ask why he's saying such nonsense. A fat man yells that they were bold to treat his boss like a thief since he had made a lot of money with his business, grabbing Minsu's shirt and saying he defeated Seijin and Dubo, but looked extremely weak. A guard shows up telling them to stop instead of fighting again, saying they were out of their minds for trying to fight even during volunteer work. The ugly delinquent says they were quiet, but the other group started the fight. Then the bald one questions what he's talking about since he was the one who started it. But he gets punched in the face by the guard, who keeps hitting him, saying he didn't like his face from the start, and it was just an accident. Minsu wonders why he's hitting him out of nowhere, and if he's on their side. The bald guy begs him to stop hitting, while the officer's hand is grabbed. Yushang says they should stop now because it's about to start. The guard says the kids were about to fight, so he acted that way, then tells them to head to the bus now. Yusun asks if Wang Hek is okay and can go to the volunteer work, and the bald guy says he's fine. Kang sighs deeply, adjusting his glasses, saying his brother was about to attack the officer just now. Minsa tells his brother to trust him, then the group gets on the bus. Moon says they were sitting like it was a school trip, while Minsa thinks the smell from the officer earlier was strange. But it wasn't the officer, it was a foot on his seat. Minsa curses the situation because of it, telling those idiots to move their feet away. The boss says if he has a problem, he should fight his subordinates, and even if Seijun shows up, he won't stand a chance against them. Minsu is surprised to see who is getting on the bus. Even the boss has the same reaction. Seijun had come out of solitary confinement, telling them to move their feet. Those idiots obey while Seijun orders everyone to get their feet off. Minsu calls out to guest Seijun, asking if today was the day he got out of solitary. Then they sit next to each other. Minsa thinks volunteer work might actually be interesting this time. The person in charge there thanks everyone for coming. He hopes the volunteers can help change the kids from the reform center. Yusum responds that he hopes the kids can help the elderly, and the other guard says he'll take some photos as a keepsake. Some women hand them drinks for having worked hard. They say it's been a while since they drank something so good, it was the taste of capitalism. Then they see the place was full of old ladies, but there were no young people there, just old folks, so it felt boring. However, the delinquent says there was one young woman there. She was a nurse. Seijin looks over when they say she's pretty. Semin asks the lady if she's cold, and if she should bring her a jacket. Seijin is left speechless, and even spits out the soda he was drinking. He wonders why his sister is there. The guys clean the elders' feet, giving them a massage. An elderly woman says Wang looks like her husband when he was young, and Wang jokes that he must have been handsome. Then the guard takes a photo of them helping the ladies. Minsu wipes the sweat from his forehead. A voice asks if the young man can wash his foot too. Minsu thinks that old man's feet looked like he'd been through a lot. Minsu washes the toes, saying he had a lot of dry skin. Then he asks if it felt refreshing, realizing that it was actually the ugly delinquent from before, who says that scratching his athlete's foot was really good, then puts his foot on Minsu's face, asking if he wants to work under him as a foot washer. Minsu gets irritated and tries to lunge at him, but Moon holds him back because they were taking pictures there, and the guard asks if they were going to fight again. The delinquents say that guy seemed like a lunatic, even Seijin and Dubo weren't like that. Minsa thinks he shouldn't cause problems and keeps repeating that to himself. Outside the nursing home, Semin looks at some flowers with a lady, saying they were very pretty, and wonders if they should take a short break there. They run into Seijin walking with an elderly man. Semin says everyone was busy volunteering, but he was taking a break. Seijin says after all, she got sent to the reform center for hitting a pervert, but now she really wants to deal with them. Semin says she regrets it, because they could have just reported him for harassment, but instead they got involved and ended up in reformatory school. Besides, that old man was the one who messed everything up. Not all old men, of course, since one day they'll be old too. She asks what kind of man he wants to become when he's old. Seijin asks what she's trying to say, but his sister replies that she doesn't know, and goes to their grandmother saying it's cold, and they should go inside. She asks her brother to think just once about what kind of old man he'll become if he keeps growing up like this. Some female volunteers ask for them to eat one at a time. The boys from Class A bring the food, saying it's time to eat, and they should eat a lot. Minsu delivers food to an elderly woman, while overhearing an argument where an old man says he's hungry and asks for a little too, but the delinquent was eating in front of her. Minsu calls him a bastard for doing that to a lady, but a liquid is dumped on his head. His underlings apologize, saying it was an accident. Minsu gets angry, but Wang and Moon hold him back before he does anything. The guard asks if Minsu is getting into another fight, and the boy says they dumped food scraps on his head. That guard replies that it was an accident, but he was going to cause more problems over it. Minsu turns to leave, irritated. The underlings laugh, saying he's a bastard and scared of a Class A for no reason. Their boss says even Class A guys aren't that tough, because inside or outside, money always wins in the end. At the reformatory school, ranks aren't based on fighting skill, but on the severity of crimes. Stronger crimes might mean they know how to fight, but they should look at the news about the corporate CEO. He doesn't even need to be good at fighting, with bodyguards, police, and even laws protecting him just because he has money. And if these guys have power, they'll just buy strength with money, since they're scammers and have tons of cash. Even Class A guys probably don't have that kind of financial power, and eventually, they'll be beneath him. Moon turns slightly uneasy. A shower dumps boiling water, filling the room with steam. The delinquents say it's been a while since they had a cigarette and took it from that old man's pocket. Then the fat one asks why they're mistreating the elderly, but they just tell him to throw water and drag him outside. The old man looks forward, begging them to stop because it's too hot. Juan walks in, saying the bathroom has been cleaned and the next place is the shower, and maybe cleaning is his true calling, only to find the three delinquents and the old man on his knees. Juan gets angry at the sight, rushing to the old man and asking if he's okay. The delinquents ask if he wants a cigarette because he scared them. Juan asks what if the old man had a heart attack, saying this is too much, but one of them hits Juan in the face, asking if he thinks he's their boss. They should go easy since the kid is crying, but Wang strikes back with a punch to his chin, shocking the other delinquents there. Wang yells for those bastards to come at him. Inside the closed-off bathroom, Moon and Minsu look down, a little nervous. Then they call out to their classmate. Outside, Minsu meets up with Yushan. He asks his brother for a favor and wants to know if they can't help him. Yushan complains that even here he wants to fight, but says to hold back, since if they cause trouble now, they'll be in an even worse situation. Minsa tells him to forget it because he was foolish to believe in him, but the guard repeats the part about older brother, and asks if he wasn't mistaken just now. He definitely heard him say Kun. Yushin tries to cover it up, but the guard says he'd always suspected something because he always saw him treating Lee Min-soo like a Kang. So he wants to know if Kang Husa. What exactly is his relationship with Lee Min-soo? Because they seem to know each other too well from before, and Yushan tries to deny it, thinking he'll get caught this way. But Sejin waves his hand, calling him Kyun, saying he was looking for him, making the guard turn around. Sejin complains that those guys were causing trouble, while the guard asks who the bastard is talking informally to a guard. Seong answers that ever since they started treating these idiots nicely, they keep calling them Kyun. The old man says that place is a school full of gangs, and he'll let it slide this time, but he should be careful because if it happens again, he'll report it to the higher-ups. Seong says he'll be more careful. As the guard leaves, he says he managed to escape this time, but he's going to be exposed next time at this rate. Min-soo punches Sejin in the stomach and thanks him. Sejin tells him not to get the wrong idea because he wasn't helping him. The boy complains about him acting like that in front of the leader. Sejin asks if he wants to bet leadership on a fight again and says they should do it. But Seong grabs both of them with his hand and tells them to stop. Min-soo asks if he's really not going to help because those bastards crossed the line. Seong gets irritated and says he almost got caught, and now he's talking like that again. Does he really want to stay there forever? He tells Sejin to keep an eye on him because he better listen. Otherwise, if he doesn't follow orders, he'll double his training. A woman asks everyone to grab one of those cushions and place them under the elders to help them rotate, adjusting the adult diapers properly. She asks the elder if it feels refreshing, and he confirms. The woman tells everyone to give it a try. Min-soo thinks there's no such thing as easy work in this world, but he can't find the diapers to continue his task. Then here's someone asking for help. The idiot delinquents were acting like superheroes, using the diapers as costumes, because they were going to fight the loser monster from Class A. Min-soo gets annoyed when he sees this, but Sejin interrupts, telling him not to fight because Hyung told him to stay quiet. Min-soo complains that he can't ignore that kind of provocation. The delinquents say they're not alone because they caught a monster to protect the world. Wang Hyuk was tied up and forced to stay like that. Min-soo remembers him all beaten up, asking what the hell they were doing to the guy who got injured because of them. But Sejin hits him on the head, telling him to stop it. Min-soo tells him not to stop unless he wants a rematch, but the boy says he actually does. However, he should look over there. The guard taking pictures says if they keep causing trouble, they'll be sent to discipline training. Sejin says they shouldn't blow this up and get Yusan in trouble. Outside, the delinquents ask Taho how long they'll have to act like subordinates, because every time that ugly-toothed bastard shows up, he wants to beat him up, thinking he's some kind of king. Taeho says watching Class C from a distance is a comfortable life, and they should just use this chance to climb higher, to a place where truly strong guys gather, with lots of privileges, the red prison uniform, and rumors that they're picking the next candidate. One of the best was there, the one Sejin lost to Lee Min-soo. That didn't make sense, because just looking at Min-soo, he seemed like a complete weakling. So he was going to defeat that bastard and prove himself to the others. The elders walk along the paths of the center. Min-soo thinks Sejin was right. It's time to endure this. And to solve the problem in his room, he can't let his brother get caught like that. So he wonders what he needs to do. When the delinquents trip him and make him fall to the ground, they laugh, saying he fell on his own. Min-soo curses them, saying he doesn't want to think about it and is going to take out 16 bastards. But Semin offers a handkerchief, asking if he's okay. Luckily, he doesn't seem to be seriously hurt, and he's tough like her brother, not crying over something like that. While Min-soo asks if she knows his brother, but the girl pretends it's a secret. Min-soo suddenly looks down, seeing the name tag that says Volunteer Gus Semin. Semin walks away, asking him to take care of her younger brother. Min-soo starts thinking about a younger brother with the last name Ga, then remembers Gus Sejin right after, and what he had said about Gus Semin being pretty during the fight. Min-soo heads towards Sejin, hitting him on the head and telling him to take that, because it was for hitting him on the head earlier. Sejin says just thinking about it makes him happy, because now he's going around hitting others for fun. On the rooftop of the nursing home, Semin wonders why he's not coming, but a can of coffee is placed on her head. Yushin apologizes for being late but wants to know why she called him. Semin says she wanted to thank him because thanks to him she got to find Sejin and his family. It was the least she could do. Yusung replies that she's been helping a lot all this time and he was just doing it to gain something. The girl replies that he has a real talent for making people want to punch him, but he turns his face and laughs with her. Changing the subject, he asks if she's heard about the red prison uniform, but Semin doesn't know anything about it. He asks if it's her first time hearing about it, since the other guards keep dodging the question and there's no way to get any information. Either way, he's leaving soon, because who knows what kind of trouble his younger brother will get into. even though he asked Sejin to keep an eye on him. Semin says that earlier she asked him to hold back instead of getting into fights. She says her brother pulled her, so of course it was going to be impressive. Even if he didn't hear it, he knows what he'll do, and he'll do it perfectly. Yuson replies that he trusts Sejin to watch over him because he's really dependable, and his younger brother is really strong and reliable after all. Semin tells him not to worry too much about that, since there's no way those two would end up fighting. While Minsu and Sejin are fighting the same delinquents from before, they keep walking as the delinquents gather because Minsu and Sejin were in a fight. Rushing to see the rumored fight where Sejin supposedly lost to Minsu, he asks if that doesn't make him mad, since not only the kids from his class, but now they're crossing the line pulling pranks on elderly people. Sejin replies that it has nothing to do with him, and they should just fight. The guy says the next target is the female volunteer, who must be his sister. Wondering how bad the prank will be, and just thinking about it makes him uneasy. The delinquents ask what they're doing with them, talking instead of fighting. And the rumor must be true that he's scared of Minsu. Sejin hits the guy on the head, saying he shouldn't be worrying about his sister. The delinquents complain about being hit, but Sejin says he's not worried about that. His sister is pretty, but that's all there is to it. The one who got hit tries to get up off the ground, but Sejin steps on his head, saying the more he thinks about it, the angrier he gets, because he's going to make these bastards pay for messing with his class. The guard lights a cigarette for the delinquent, asking how he's doing, and if he's comfortable enough, since he needs forged documents to get this, while the delinquent says he's very satisfied, because thanks to him, he can smoke like this, and this time he even prepared a little bonus. Shin says he always gives him extra money, and that's why he appreciates him, while the delinquent says if they manage to recruit the construction guys, he'll pay even more. But he needs to figure out a way to get a special cell with Officer Shin because he's going to meet someone now. Shin complains that he can't do that since it's something only guards can do, and if he gets caught, they'll both be punished. One of the delinquents opens the door saying there's a big problem, announcing that Guest Sejin is beating up his guys. Officer Shin asks if he's lost his mind because he told them not to fight, but now they're ignoring his orders, and the delinquent tells him to just forget it, because he was planning to teach a lesson anyway, calling for Park Taeho next. Since his subordinate should lead the way there, Senin watches all of this from a distance, sighing a bit as she thinks. Minsu hopes Sejin takes out the delinquents, and that they completely crush Gus Sejin, thinking that since his brother made Sejin watch over him, he'll use Sejin's rage buttons to eliminate the enemies, fighting fire with fire. The delinquents charge in again, saying it's just one guy, and they're going to beat this bastard up. Sejin, annoyed, asks how they dare lay a hand on his sister. Minsu sits down on the ground, saying he heard that. The delinquents grab Sejin to beat him while Minsu hears him asking for help, so he kicks one of them, complaining that he didn't plan on fighting. But if he's going to ask so sincerely like that, there's nothing he can do. Sejin says he can handle this alone. He just felt like jumping in. Backing up against the wall next, the fat delinquent says he's finished now since he can't dodge anymore. But Sejin breaks through his strike, saying the wall trick doesn't work anymore. Minsu thinks that bastard seems stronger after training with his brother, but so is he, dodging one of the delinquent's punches, saying he's gotten much stronger than before. Sejin tells him not to get in his way, and Minsu repeats that he shouldn't hold him back. But it was easy to take down all those weak delinquents with just a few punches. Minsu asks why he's calling him a mama's boy when he's the pervert in love with his sister. Sejin argues with him for calling him a pervert, grabbing him by the shirt while Minsu asks how he dares act like that in front of the leader, and Sejin suggests they fight again. But Taeho appears behind him, kicking Minsu and telling him to get out of the way, throwing the boy far away. Taeho says he doesn't look like someone who would lose to that rat bastard like that, but since he was the previous candidate, he should fight him one-on-one. Sejin kicks Taeho in the head, asking who told him to interfere. The brute responds that, just like the rumors said, he was pretty strong, making Sejin wonder how he endured that. Taeho throws a punch, saying he was going to test his durability too. Minsu gets up from the ground, asking who the bastard interfering was. The ugly delinquent from Class A calls out to Minsu, saying this was his final offer to hand over the whole block to his controlled, because once he got the red uniform, he would take good care of him. Minsu thinks he was talking about the guy who gave him shampoo before, and wants to know what the hell that was supposed to mean. Then tells him to screw off for messing with the old folks in his room, something he'd never let slide. But a sack is tied over his head. Minsu complains that it's dark as he holds on. The delinquent puts his foot on Minsu's head, saying that was the reason, that while he was being nice, Minsu should have listened. But now he's going to discard him, since he really wants a strong subordinate, someone powerful like Go Seijen. But of course, compared to Gas Seijen, his Taeho is much stronger. Taeho may only be Class D, but his raw strength was at Class A level. Seijen wonders what was up with this guy because he was taking hits on purpose to land his own, getting hit repeatedly by Taeho. Sejin thinks he can't keep taking it like this or he'll lose again like before, so he has to attack too, landing a punch on Taho's face. However, Sejin realizes that this bastard, his power and his endurance, were a level above his, and Taho knocks Sejin down. The boy goes unconscious for a split second, but wakes up wondering what he should do in this situation. Thinking back to when he asked Yusong in solitary confinement to teach him how to fight, Sejin asks why he lost to Minsu, while the guy responds that his fighting skills were better than Minsu's and he had a longer reach. But that was his only advantage, and if long reach was his strength, then just seal it off. If Minsu had long reach, strength, and endurance, no one could beat him. Taiho smiles, saying the guy was trying again, and should just stay on the ground because they were on completely different levels. Sejin thinks that he's going to learn a way to become stronger, developing his own fighting style, and says he'll show what a real difference in levels means. Sejin charges at Taho, who asks if he's really going to show himself now, and that this was the only way it would be fun to crush him. He lands a punch while asking what that was, because all Sejin was doing was blocking, and that's boring, hitting him over and over, but all being blocked. But he couldn't keep blocking forever. Sejin thinks the guy was confident in blocking because Yusung charges at him, telling Sejin to keep his eyes open and watch the fist. But Gus Sejin's movements were getting slower. His left arm loses its base because he wasn't putting much strength into it, and a blow goes straight to his eyes. Yusung warns that if his arm drops, the attack will break through just like that. Sejin wonders how long he can keep blocking, and if that would really make him stronger. Kang tells him to carefully think about the reason he lost to Minsu. Was it because he got cornered or because he got angry? But in truth, he wasn't paying attention to his opponent's movements and was only thinking about how to counterattack. This training was about observing the enemy's attacks, and Sejin thinks that he really can see it now, because he started to see the guy's movements, with Taho saying he blocks well. A deep breath from the opponent, with his shoulders rising, and that means that a big attack is coming, and that also meant it was his chance to counterattack, striking beneath Taiho's blow. The bigger the movement, the bigger the opening. Taiho says that bastard was only managing to hurt him after defending, and then he suddenly attacked him, so he starts repeating a barrage of punches against Sejin, who thinks that the more he observes, the clearer it becomes. The pattern of that guy's fists, the speed of his punches, and even the time it takes for his fist to return to base. Taiho cursed him while being injured, asking if that was all he had because he was far from winning, while Sejin thinks he keeps swinging his fists like that, so he'll just wear himself out first. It was so foolish that he never realized this until recently. Then he lands another punch to Taho's face. Sejin thinks that just by watching, he can become strong, and now he understands why he lost to Minsu. So now he wants to know, who is this guy? The one who neutralized his reaction, which means he's truly strong, landing a precise hit to Taho's nose, sending the brute flying, and now keeping his stance high. Sejin says he ended up going serious against someone like this, but he's still far from Jisoo, and he needs to find out where Minsu ended up. Suddenly looking to the side, the weak delinquent was repeatedly hitting him, asking why he wouldn't just surrender, saying those punches should really hurt, while Minsu thinks this hurts, because those punches really do sting. This guy was so weak, and it was breaking his heart, and he wonders how someone can have punches this soft. He must have experienced something like this before, but it felt like getting hit with one of those inflatable cheering sticks. He wonders if it's because of the training, or because he fought with those two strong guys. The delinquent says if it hurts, he should call his mom, but he doesn't have one. That's when Minsu grabs his fist, getting irritated at hearing that, and says that bastard crossed the line by talking about his mother, stomping on his crotch while saying it's his revenge for his teammates and the elderly. But Officer Shin interrupts, asking what the hell they think they're doing, starting a fight outside like that. Are they out of their minds? Minsu says he didn't start it, and Sejin was getting beaten up so he joined in to help. Sion kicks him in the head saying that's fighting, but wants to know what kind of trick this guy pulled this time, asking Sejin. The boy says there was no trick, he started the fight, because those bastards were trying to hurt his sister, and were also beating up the elders in the nursing home. Officer Shin tells him not to get close to guys like that, because that's the reason they're lying now, and Yusong better prepare a report when they get back. Semin approaches, asking about a disciplinary report, saying he should be preparing for an exam instead of a report. Shin asks who she is, and says if she's a civilian, she needs to get out. The girl shows her phone and says that even after seeing this, he still acts so shamelessly. Pressing the play button on the phone, Shin wonders what he's supposed to be looking at as the video plays with his voice and the delinquents, including the confession of all the crimes, document forgery, and outside dealings. Shin asks her to wait just a minute. Semin asks if he took a bribe, and more than that, he forged official documents, which counts as ideological falsification. Shin lunges at her, telling her to drop it. but his wrist is grabbed by Yusheng, who then slams him to the ground. Shin complains that his arm is close to breaking. Yusheng thinks he stopped this before it escalated into something much worse, while Semin looks at him, asking if he managed to help this time. Yusheng makes a call to Ganyo Division headquarters, saying he has something to report, and the guard screams that it wasn't just him. One of the people behind this was a prisoner in a red uniform who was collecting most of the bribes. Yusheng remembers that guy in red he saw earlier, saying he'll just report his return to Sergeant Kim, then tells Shin he'll keep his eyes closed this time, but grabs his collar, saying that either way, he better explain in full detail what the red uniforms are. In the reformatory courtyard, Minsu asks if earning 50 more points would make him free. It had been a week since he returned from volunteer duty, and the guards were still as brutal as ever. All the fights between kids kept repeating. Maybe because they got beaten by him and Sijin, the kids from Class C don't mess with them anymore. He greets someone, saying he still hasn't delivered the letter to Sarah and needs to do it on the next supply day. So he and his brother walk together to the cleaning supply warehouse. Yusheng says he already informed the kitchen staff, so he should just follow him, and Minsu looks to the side, watching Gus Seijin's training, thinking that bastard was working non-stop and really wanted to beat him up so badly. Yusheng says they're here and this would be the place, while Minsu asks if they were just going to clean. But everything was already organized, and Minsu wants to know what they were going to do. Yusong handcuffs him. The boy asks why he's doing this, but his brother tells him to stay still as he walks away. He says he came there to train him, and for now his hands would be tied, so he just needs to dodge the ball. Minsu wonders how something like this came so suddenly. The ball was approaching him. Minsu thinks he's nervous realizing this is actual training, but it's still slower than he expected. However, he notices another trajectory from the ball, saying there was another one, and it was faster than that one. Yusheng says that now he's training, his instincts for reacting to variables and crises, and Minsu asks what he means by instinct, because he had already dealt with Seijin and Dubo. So does that mean he doesn't need to train? Yusheng says that he definitely won, but can't say he did it properly. The way those three fight is very one-dimensional, and he was just exploiting their weaknesses. But what if Seijin comes up with a strategy and moves accordingly? What would he do to win? Or what if he can't build enough leg strength to beat Dubo? What he's learning now is basic strategy, and if he fights now, he'll probably lose. Minsu says he'll trust his instinct, but that's because he doesn't want to lose to that bastard Seijen. But he asks if his brother doesn't hate fighting, and Yusan replies that he does hate doing this, but he still has to because this place is more dangerous than he thought, as he throws the ball at Minsu. At night in a small bar, Shin pours some soju into Sergeant Kang's glass, saying he has no idea how grateful he is for turning a blind eye. Yushin says he's going to ask directly what the red prison uniform is. Shin says he doesn't know the full details, but there are many secrets around it, and the boy replies that he needs to know what's dangerous in order to avoid it. The guard explains that the red prison uniform is for inmates personally chosen by the director, and they handle tasks the guards can't deal with. In exchange, they receive special privileges, and Yusong asks what kind of tasks guards can't handle. Shin says, for example, preventing someone from being released. Because the purpose of the Juvenile Rehabilitation Center goes beyond rehabilitation, and if some people were sent back to society, it could cause political problems. So basically, they prevent people from leaving, and Yusong asks about the points. Shin says he's pretty naive, because no one has ever left the center in a good condition. That was the role of the red prison uniform, a job guards aren't allowed to do. They take care of those who accumulate enough points to leave, and turn them into fools. In short, leaving was impossible. Yusung says that even if it's impossible, he'll make it happen. Somehow, he's going to make Minsu stronger and ensure he gets released properly. So he'll be waiting to meet him. Kangman says he heard he was uniting Block C and gathering strong individuals, and was curious about what kind of person he was. Taejong says that wasn't his full power, it was just a small test. But he'll explain his business, while Kangman asks how he keeps a business running inside this place. The boy says that as long as there's money, there are plenty of people outside who can activate betting apps. This place is no different from society, and as long as you have money, you can control both fellow inmates and guards. Kangman says he's building power through money and really does think differently from the others. Taejong says the leader of the engineering team catches on quick, so he wants to know what he thinks about joining forces, because his money and forces are united, and if Kangman and his subordinates team up, they can aim for the special unit too. If he helps, he'll give him 20% of his business profits, which should be around $4 grand a month. He also wants to wear the red prison uniform and can help with that. Kangman refuses the offer after hearing that, saying it doesn't matter how good his plan is, working under someone weak would ruin his reputation. Taejong says he'll give him more time to think, and asks why he thought he would come to a meeting without any guards or subordinates. A man with a C on his abdomen approaches, saying that Kamen was famous in any neighborhood he went to, since he must have heard about Jang Daedong and Encheldu. Another guy tells him to back off, because he'll deal with him himself, being the leader of the rank D cell, Jang Saegyeon. Park Taeho and So Seonjin were also there, ready to fight. Taejong says their forces were united here, and they were the strongest from their respective areas, so he wants to know if Kangmin changed his mind now. Kangmin takes off his glasses, saying it really is impressive, recruiting strong fighters with money. But still, he looks behind him, asking if he really thought 4 people would be enough to handle this. In the cleaning supply room, Seong says here he goes again, so his brother better dodge as he throws the ball. The ball comes flying toward Minsu's face, but the boy manages to dodge by moving his body. He thinks this time it came faster, but he can still dodge it, even playing with one of the balls at his foot. Seong says he's getting kind of good at it now, throwing another ball at his brother while thinking he never expected him to dodge precisely without wasting movement. But he's still got the bare minimum of awareness. A ball stops on the floor. Minsu asks if it wasn't good enough. Seong thinks that just as expected, even if he's never learned anything, his talent is exceptional. So he decides to move on to stage 2, throwing a ball downward. Minsu wonders what that was, since his brother was aiming for his foot, but if that's the case, he can dodge it. But the ball bounces and hits him in the face. Minsu falls to the ground right after. He says that was a foul. Who the hell throws like that? Seong says that's why it's called Stage 2. Direct attacks like in Stage 1 aren't hard to dodge once you get the pattern. But if you train in Stage 2, you can experience what it's like to deal with attacks from various angles. And he must have learned something too. Hooks come from the side like that. Cross punches come from below. Attacks aiming at blind spots are tough even for professionals, and Minsu says he'll take it all in. Minsu wants to know why his arms are tied, because it's really uncomfortable, and Seong explains that both hands are offensive and defensive, but he'll learn how to use them when he can't dodge or block. Minsu says he'll accept the training, but wants to know why. He's not being trained too, while Sijin charges at Seong. The guard says he's improved more than expected, but Seong's fist stops right in front of his face, saying he still has a long way to go. Sijin says he just needs a bit more, and if he can pull. But his words are cut off by the pull of the elastic band, causing Sijin to fall to the ground. Seong walks towards Sijin, saying they both want to become stronger, but he's the only one there to guide their training. But he won't be the only reason they grow stronger. The training might be hell, but if they can get past the beginning, their potential will truly blossom. But if he can't make it, what's left is just potential. He hopes that once this hellish training is over, he'll know which of the two became stronger. In the hall where Kangmin had faced Taesong's subordinates, the guard opens the door. He says for now the shipment is all ready, but he looks a bit uneasy at what's left. 2 large men were knocked out cold on the floor, while Kangmin stands on top of Taeho with ease, displaying his Yakuza tattoos. The man remains standing, looking upward. Taejong crawls toward Officer Shin, begging for help, because Taeho wasn't enough, so he brought those 3 strong guys, but he still couldn't handle this man. Shin grabs a phone from his back, saying he really had things prepared, handing the phone to Kangmin, ignoring Taesong's pleas for help, and asking why he didn't need to evolve, and Taesong is a bit confused. The man asks why the officer is working with this guy, and his face is kicked by the officer's foot, complaining that this piece of trash, because of him, Kang Yu-song had gained the upper hand over him, so he should hurry up and give the security code. Taejong wonders what he's talking about and how he even knows about the security code. Kangmin says his men took over his business sites, then asks if they'd already cleared everything out, with 3 cars parked in front of his company. The gang members confirm they took care of everything, so Kangmin says he'll give them the security code to open the safe. Asking how much was inside, the guy says that combining cash, shell accounts, and some cryptocurrencies, it looked like they were about to add 200 million won. Kangmin says those 200 million looked like fake sales reports. Shin asks if he'll get his 10%, while Kangmin throws the phone back, saying it'll be deposited today, but more importantly, he wants them to let those people know that he'd like to meet them, because they should know he's prepared his tributes. Minsu asks what that's supposed to mean, since he wasn't allowed to work in the kitchen anymore. Dubo replies that's just how things turned out, while Minsu asks why it had to be him of all people, since there were other guys too. Shin explains they have too many people on the cooking team and have to cut some. But there was an opening on the construction team and asks if he wants to take that spot. Minsu hesitates to respond, wondering if he could do it without his hem's permission and if this messed up his plan. Shin says he just needs to say so if he doesn't want to, but Minsu agrees to join, thinking that if he earns points, nothing can go wrong, and says that since it's opening again, he'll definitely call for Duboram. The giant tells him to be careful, because being cut from the cooking team and moved to construction was all part of someone's plan. Minsu wonders what kind of place this is, full of delinquents, wondering if they're really high school students like him and why they all look so scary, wanting to know if the class here had another guy like Du Boram, and if he's just as clueless, it'd be a huge headache. Cayman approaches, saying it's not nice to scare a friend who came to help, and that he's heard a lot about him, then hands him a glove, saying he'll hurt his hands if he works without it. He is Lee Cayman, the leader of the construction team. Since it's probably his first time with handmade machines, he'll make sure to help him properly, so he should let him know if anything else comes up because he'll support him. Minsu thinks it's a relief that the team leader is kind and gentle, unlike Du Boram, and that moving to the construction team was the right idea. But Cayman looks at him differently. Walking through the prison corridors, a girl asks how far they're going because her legs are killing her, and the guard says they're here and this is the place. She asks how kids live here, since it smells like lonely old people. The guard opens the door, saying he'll give her exactly 5 minutes, so she should handle it and leave right after. The girl enters the room, waving goodbye to the officer. Park Hyoshin says she came there looking for someone. The delinquents wonder how this girl ended up in a male rehabilitation center. Cayman tells his subordinates to bow their heads and cover their ears, then sits down so Park Hyoshin can enter the room. She says he's cute acting like a gangster, and Cayman replies that his guys are trustworthy, because when he gives the signal, they won't see or hear anything. The girl says Cayman's face is her type. The boy replies she's not the first who came to see him, and Hyoshin asks if it was Kim Hwairyong because she had other business to deal with. Cayman says he's not disappointed, but only one new person showed up. The girl replies it's embarrassing when he stares at her like that, while Cayman thinks she looks weak, but wears the red prison uniform, something unexpected. So he asks what brought her there. Hyoshin says that now there are 3 candidates again. Cayman thinks he was sure Baram and Gus Sajin had been eliminated, and the girl says the first is him, Lee Cayman. The second is Hasum Hyol from the maintenance team, and finally the third, the representative of Class A4, Lee Minsu, whom IMG Soo nominated as a candidate. Cayman replies that he really has proven himself a lot, but he doesn't understand why he's still just a candidate. Hyoshin replies that he hasn't proven anything yet, because while it looked like he did everything, it was all thanks to his brother, Lee Kangwon, and Kangwon realizes she knows his brother. Hyoshin says that even if a tiger stays behind a rabbit, the rabbit is still a rabbit in the end, but that little bunny can't prove himself without a tiger. Kangwon takes off his glasses, repeating bunny and prove, because if he defeats her right here and now, that would prove everything. The girl replies that she doesn't know about something like that to fall for such a provocation, but he was far from ready. Kangwon thinks she doesn't seem to like him, but he wants to know what that strange feeling is, while Hyoshin asks if she looks weak to him. He thinks this guy isn't an opponent for him. Hyoshin laughs and asks him not to take it personally, and if he wants to defeat one of the remaining candidates, it would count as a trial. But she'll help him move forward along with Hwairyong too. The girl says time's up, and that she'll see him next time. Kangwon clenches his fist, very irritated by this, wondering why he's so tense, since more important than that, he needs to defeat one of the two. He looks at Lee Minsa hammering in some nails, thinking he doesn't look like someone capable of beating Du Boram or Gus Sejun, and if that's the case, he should test the guy a little. Minsu says maybe he's more talented than he thought, but the head of a hammer flies toward him. Minsa dodges by instinctively tilting his head back, wondering about the hammer that hit the wall. One of the men apologizes, saying the hammerhead just flew off, and Minsu asks why he was swinging his hammer around, but decides to assume it wasn't on purpose, walking off saying there were a lot of dangerous things around there, so he needs to stay cautious too. Tripping on a cable and hitting his head on some nails, Minsu plants his elbow on the ground, stopping a nail from piercing his eye. Another coworker apologizes, saying he was organizing the wires and didn't know his foot would get caught. Minsu wonders what on earth is going on since the danger keeps repeating, wanting to know if this could be accidental or intentional, and if it's intentional, then why. He raises his hand, thinking Kangwon is there and should help him, but someone else grabs his wrist, since he'd get hurt if he kept doing that. Minsa thanks him, thinking the guy was trying to help him, so it must have been a mistake. Other coworkers ask what he's doing, and the guy explains he was going to show him how to use the table saw. He needs to do it this way and place his hand like this. Minsu says they don't need to help him this much, but the coworker asks what he's doing, because if he moves his hand like that, he could lose it, then moves it near the saw to cut his fingers. Minsu starts trembling in fear seeing that, but someone turns off the power switch. Minsu asks what that blackout was, since he might act like that again, but the lights come back on and he wonders if someone touched it. Kangwon notices something strange in that direction. The subordinates are lying on the ground, pretending they were knocked out by Minsu. The guy complains that these guys can't just fall over and pretend to sleep there. Minsu lifts his head before turning around, saying he didn't hit any of them. The delinquents gather in front of them. Minsu wonders if this really was a trap, while two subordinates approach saying they tried to save him but he was attacking the kids, and Minsu thinks he should fight back, but he doesn't want to lose points, so he raises his hand saying he has no chance. The delinquent asks what was with that pose, but Minsu calls for the officers, wanting them to pay attention to what's going on. He thinks the guards finally looked in this direction, but they ignore him saying the weather is great today. Minsu wonders why they don't plan on listening, as the two delinquents leap toward him to punch him, yelling that the guards there were all bought off by them in the end. Minsu thinks the officers are on their side too. In the cleaning storage room, Gasejin sighs, panting heavily. Sion wonders if it's that late already, and he should just go back, because if he stays late cleaning the warehouse, it'll look suspicious. Seijin begs for just one more shift, because this time he's definitely going to pass while thinking he's still at level 1. That guy had already moved on to level 2 training, so he can't fall behind, because he absolutely won't lose to Lee Minsu. Minsu dodges the delinquent's punches, preventing any of the 4 from landing a hit. Kangmin thinks this guy is better than he expected, but wants to know why he isn't fighting back. Minsu dodges, saying he really doesn't want to cause any kind of trouble. He just wants to earn a few merits and leave quietly, and he seriously can't afford any penalty points. Kangmin says he was holding back at home because the officers might give him penalty points, and it was unbelievable. He tells the police to go outside and smoke quickly because he was going to clean things up here. Minsu thinks the guards are done for now. In that case, he dodges the shirtless delinquent's strike, then hits his chin with a quick elbow. Another delinquent charges at him, saying he must have a death wish. Minsu ducks low, using his right hand for support, and brings his foot up to the delinquent's face, throwing him far away with ease. Kangmin says now he gets it. He didn't beat Gasejin and Do Baram just by luck. Minsu asks who came up with this childish plan, and what he did to deserve it, and Kangmin replies that he's one of the candidates just like him. Minsu asks what they're even candidates for, because he just wants to earn some volunteer points. Kangmin remembers what Hyoshin said about proving himself without a tiger. He says he had planned to hold back his subordinates and was thinking of eliminating a candidate. But being compared to someone clueless really pissed him off this time, so he says screw it. He's going to take his life himself. Minsu replies that that's exactly the spirit. If he wanted to fight, he should have said so in the first place, because he shouldn't have wasted his strength for nothing, flipping his hair aside, telling him to stop posing, and come at him already to get beaten. In the civil engineering class, some people gather with their arms crossed to watch. A subordinate asks Chang-hee if that guy isn't from his room. Watching Minsu dodge one of Kangmin's attacks, the guy thinks he's fast. He can barely dodge those strikes himself, since he was attacking like a predator targeting its prey, with no fear in pressing for a response. He wonders if that bastard learned boxing or something, but he can't dodge forever, so he blocks a punch. Thinking now it's his turn, he moves in toward Kangmin, since Minsu is aiming for his opening, and then closes in, hitting Minsu in the face. Kangmin blocks with his hand, saying he's pretty good at dodging his blows, but he probably never learned how to land one, then throws Minsu away, asking if that's how he fought the others too. Minsu just takes the hits without being able to do anything. Kangmin says maybe Seijin and Do Baram weren't strong after all. Minsu manages to dodge another punch. He thinks he'd been waiting for this moment to strike Kangmin's side, but the delinquent shifts his gaze, landing an elbow on Minsu's back to stop him from counterattacking. Minsu thinks now he's using elbows too, and he has no choice but to keep dodging. His attacks won't work on this bastard now, but if he keeps dodging until he tires, he'll find an opening. But now his chest was exposed. Minsu thinks he might have a shot at that opening this time, but Kangmin kicks him just as Minsu realizes the openings were a trap, and he was kicking in a boxing match. Kangmin uses the kick for leverage. Minsu realizes he's not a regular boxer, but actually fights using kickboxing instead, so he's screwed this time. Kangmin comes in with a knee to his opponent's face, but it's stopped by a hand. Sion had blocked the strike with ease. Kangmin wonders what the hell that was as he pulls back, wanting to know who this officer was, as Sion says the fight ends here, and if the two keep fighting, he'll send them both to solitary, and Kangmin thinks he definitely wasn't in charge of the civil engineering class, but still came here. Sion asks if they understood, wondering what the hell the other officers were doing, and he wouldn't let this slide. The police say they just wanted to sneak out for a smoke, but maybe they shouldn't stop something so petty like that. Sion says he'll let it slide today, and it was already late to deal with it. Kangmin clenches his fist, saying that next time he better make sure that he catches Lee Minsu. In the detention center infirmary, Minsu asks why he wasn't mad, since he thought his brother would be stressed after he got into a fight. Sion replies that he doesn't know the reason yet, but wants to know why he went to the civil engineering group. Minsu says they were cutting down the number of people in the cooking team, and he heard you could earn merit points in the civil engineering group. Sion reflects that there wasn't any such order, but now that she thinks about it, something like that did happen when Minsu was placed in the kitchen group. Wondering if someone is targeting Minsu, Minsu says that Kamen was like Sejun, where he couldn't land a single hit in the end and couldn't even dodge everything. Sion replies that it's natural, since that guy trained in martial arts, specifically kickboxing. Unlike Sejun or Du Buram, he isn't someone who can be beaten with just tricks and strategies, and Minsu needs to improve his own skills. They don't have another choice and need to start the next phase of training, which is phase 3. His brother will accompany him to the civil engineering team until the training is complete, while Yusheng thinks he doesn't know who set Minsu up. But he can't keep dodging it forever and needs to face it head on, so he says that Minsu must also focus on building up his strength at the same time. In the engineering room later, Kamen thinks it was amazing that the guy in the red uniform brought Minsu to the civil engineering team, but Kang Yusong had been watching the team for weeks. Because of that, he couldn't finish things with Lee Minsu. Even with personal records being stolen, he couldn't find any weakness in Kang Yusong, and one day, if he was gone even for just a day, then he starts thinking a bit. Seeing the phone in his drawer start to vibrate, the guy answers, saying it's him, and he shouldn't tell Han about this, but there's something he wants the guys to do for him. In the middle of a shopping area in Seoul, Kang Yusong looks at his watch, a bit uneasy. The guy thinks it's about time for her to show up. As a girl approaches in her sneakers, Sunan was getting closer to her friend. She apologizes for being a little late. Seyong says he totally understands because he was also 30 minutes late, and the girl asks if he has a death wish, and that next time she'll be an hour late, while Yusheng says he'll be 2 hours late next time too. Someone takes a picture of the two together. That subordinate reports to his boss that he found him, the weakness he had been talking about, just like his boss had ordered him to do, walking the streets of Seoul. The people tailing the two wonder what they're talking about. They say obviously the two were flirting and didn't want to say goodbye. One of the guys says he's jealous because some people are stuck while others are out having fun with girls before dawn. Semin says she'll call him, and he better dream about her forever. The girl walks alone through the streets, turning a corner along the way, while the car continues to follow her. The men get out of the car soon after. They thank her for coming home on her own like that. Semin complains that it's a lot of people just for a stalker. The delinquents say she should come with them for a moment, and the girl agrees but says first. She asks if he can put out the cigarette since she was trying to leave. Someone places a cup of coffee down, asking how Kang Yusong is doing. Shin says he seems a bit obsessed with Lee Minsu. He put Minsu in the civil engineering group, and Yushang's expression wasn't normal. He had been showing up in the group regularly lately, and the director asks if there's anything else. Shin says he had asked about the red rehabilitation class. The director explains that the first reason they moved Lee Minsu to the kitchen group was to test him, but also to observe Kang Yushang's reaction, and that was the reason he had sent Shin as a volunteer. The reason they moved Lee Minsu to the civil engineering group was due to a request from the special unit, but also because Kang Yusong is suspicious. Strangely, he's the only one blocked from accessing the military network, and all they know about him is from the documents they received, and there's definitely something behind him. He had requested a background check on him from the outside, and something should be arriving soon, while Shin says he'll keep an eye on him. But there's something else that's curious too, since he's been watching Kang Yusong, but about the special unit. He wants to know why they're interested in Lee Minsu, because he resembles someone. Minsu thinks it's been 2 weeks since he fought Kangman. He keeps training and can't say if he'd win, since the old tactics don't work on him anymore, and he's the kind of opponent you have to beat with skill. And for that, he needs a level 3 master. People start asking for the soap that was in Moon's hand. It slips and falls for a few seconds. He thinks that dropping it in front of Wang Hyuk would be way too dangerous. But a hand grabs the soap before it hits the ground. Minsu catches it quickly, hands it back to Moon and tells him to be more careful and not drop it, and Moon thanks him. But he wants to know what he just did, and how his body seemed way stronger this time. The guys get dressed in their room. Sejin says that Officer Kang doesn't seem like he's coming today and went on vacation all of a sudden. He asks about his training, and Minsu explains that he asked to organize the storage room instead. Chang-hee then calls out to Minsu, asking if he can talk to him privately for just a second. Minsu asks why the serious tone all of a sudden. Chang-hee says it's about the civil engineering team, and Minsu replies that he was there too. But he wants to know if it was him who turned off the lights, because it saved him from a bad situation. Chang-hee says he doesn't understand how terrifying Kangman really is. Minsu asks what he's doing taking off his pants. The guy suddenly looks surprised, wondering what that was on his leg. Chang-hee says he was Kangman's friend and subordinate. He's the gangster who ruled the Daeyeon-dong area, and Chang-hee was under his command, and once crossed him and ended up like that. If Kangman was only good at fighting, it wouldn't be a problem. But this guy is truly cruel, and anyone who defies him will suffer revenge. Chang-hee tells him not to go back to the civil engineering team because if he wants to stay in the rehabilitation class, he'd better back off. Minsu says they won't do anything with another officer around, and that he was just looking for another volunteer position, while Chang-hee asks if he's not heading to the office now. The guy reflects that if it's necessary for him and his brother's plan, he'll fight again. Kamen asks how things are going. His subordinate reports that he captured her and is taking her to the hideout now. Once they get there, he has to tell Kang Yuzhong where they are, so he should make sure he doesn't return to the rehabilitation class today. The guy asks what to do with the girl, and Kamen tells him to handle it however he wants. He laughs, saying there will be a party tonight. While Semin is still pretending to sleep, she opens her eyes next, thinking about Kamen and the rehabilitation class. This was different from what she expected, and those subordinates belonged to someone inside the rehabilitation center. Wondering if their goal was to buy time for Yusong, she had warned that she would be the bait, and Yusong warns that it's dangerous. Semin says they'd been tracking them all this time, and the target is either him or her. But maybe it's the darkness hidden behind the rehabilitation class, or the real culprit who framed Minsu, or someone connected to the Red Room of Rehabilitation. So it's crucial to find out who's behind this, and he can't let this chance slip away, while Yusong says if the target is her. But the girl hands him a key telling him not to worry, because if she's the real target in all this, he would come save her life without hesitation. The car finally passes through a tunnel, but Minsu catches up on Semin's motorcycle. He follows them from a fair distance, turning on the headlights and watching those idiots do their thing. Yusung thinks that Semin needs to hang in there this time, because he will definitely save her. Kangmin says he never expected this, because he asked to meet separately with him, calling the name Lee Chang-hee, who tells him to just ignore Minsu. He says he doesn't know why he became a target, but he's just someone trying to take care of the shop, and Kangmin asks why he should listen to him. Chang-hee says that now that he's part of the civil engineering team, he doesn't just want to speak as his subordinate, but also as his childhood friend. Back in elementary school, Kangmin and he were the best of friends possible, but after elementary school, Kangmin joined his brother's business. Chang-hee was dealing with his sick mother and lost contact with him due to personal circumstances. He got his license to enter high school and started working as a delivery driver, receiving an order to deliver to a customer. The boss tells him to drive safely, while Chang-hee thinks that when they found out about his situation, they kindly gave him a motorcycle. Thanks to that, he could pay his mother's bills while working, and he thanks the two of them. He says that even here they deliver food in such an old building. Chang-hee enters the house and says he's there to deliver food and wonders where he should place it. Coming face to face with dozens of gangsters, the guy says he'll just leave the delivery there as he turns around. But their leader asks if he is Chang-hee. A subordinate of Kangmin asks if he knows him, while Kangmin replies that he was a classmate, and Chang-hee thinks about not recognizing him due to how much he changed. All those luxury accessories make the guy wonder how much money he's making this time. Kangmin asks how he's been and if his mother is still sick, and Chang-hee confirms, saying he's been doing some deliveries. His childhood friend stares at him up close, asking if he wants to make some easy money. Grabbing a cockroach with tweezers, they put it inside a bowl of food, then take a picture of it, and post a bad review, while Kangmin praises him for having a talent for writing, and says that if he keeps doing this, he'll make a fortune. Chang-hee asks if this can really make money, and his friend says he wouldn't be doing this alone. But if he does it this way, he can earn a decent amount. A restaurant owner kneels down, begging for forgiveness, saying he'll pay money if he just deletes the reviews. Kangmin tells him to deposit 3,000 today so they can be deleted, and the man says he understands and will do it right away. The money hits Chang-hee's account, and he wonders if that was his first salary, just for writing a few reviews, thinking that if he keeps earning money this way, he could pay his mom's hospital bills. But he remembers the Chinese restaurant owned by his uncle, where he lost his life. Chang-hee says he brought that on himself, and they said there were bugs in the food, leading to massive backlash and being forced to pay to get it deleted. But Mr. Kim had no fault, and after that, his store went bankrupt, making him do this, while they complained that people like that are worse than scum for doing it with food. Chang-hee thinks that this was the kind of thing he did under Kangmin's orders, and it was as if he had taken his uncle's life. Kangmin is writing on a piece of paper and questions what's going on, because the guy wants to confess. Chang-hee says someone who wasn't guilty lost their life because of them and asks if he doesn't feel guilty. Kangmin grabs him by the throat, repeating the word guilty, saying that if he felt that way, he wouldn't have started this business at all, and asking if he got emotional and found a way to make money only to confess afterward. He should know that Kangmin never forgets betrayal, while Chang-hee begs him to wait a second. His leg is stabbed with Kangmin's pen, who throws him to the ground, saying if he keeps talking like that, he'll make sure he looks like a total idiot. A man arrives, saying that his younger brother has a soft heart. Everyone bows in front of Kangwon, the head of the organized crime syndicate. Kaiman says his brother didn't tell him he was coming, but Kaiman orders him to shut down his operation because the police will be arriving soon. His brother asks if this guy tried to call the police. Kangwon replies that it's his own fault for not keeping his business quiet. There were too many victims, and someone lost their life. And if he had done a good job, he could have caught this guy in his place, and Kangman asks if it's really going to end like this. But his brother asks what he thought would happen just because this was his subordinate, and Kangman has to go too, since he's still a minor. So he gets the tattoo on his chest, and ends up joining Kangman's gang. The boss asks if it's the first time since that day that they've spoken face to face like this, and that he came to him because of Minsu and had a similar thought. But he was also going to call him because of Minsu, since he stopped Yusan from coming. He doesn't have a way to call Lee Minsu, and Chong-hee asks what that means, only to be slammed against the table afterward. Kangman asks if he knows why he ended up with the troublesome role of civil engineer. Because in the engineering group, if he gets injured or becomes a fool, no one will suspect a thing, and that'll make Minsu come to that place. The van parks in front of an abandoned house. The subordinate announces that they've arrived at the warehouse. The girl was being quietly held, but something about it felt strange, because she had been kidnapped and was still calm, while the boss replies that he sent the message to Yushan and he's not coming to the gang. Then he turns off his phone, saying that if he's worried about his girlfriend, he should come to this address at 12 o'clock sharp, and he knows what would happen if he's late. But Yushan tells them not to rush him, because he was already standing in front of that abandoned warehouse.
Our video ends here. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, bye bye.